Every soul walks with its own karma. What if the person you fear most is not standing in front of you, but quietly living inside the choices you have already made? No enemy in this world can wound us as deeply as the karma we have planted with our own hands. In this narration, we follow the quiet inner journey of ordinary people. Parents, children, friends, strangers, and seekers, who begin to understand why joy and suffering do not arrive by accident. A father loses the trust of his child and blames the child's coldness. A woman is betrayed by someone she loved and feels the whole world has turned cruel. A man wakes up in sickness, anger, and disappointment, asking why life has chosen him for pain. The central question is simple, yet life-changing. If each person carries their own karma, how should we live today, so that tomorrow does not become a battlefield of regret? When suffering comes, the human heart does not remain still, it runs. It runs toward memory, toward accusation, toward the face of someone who hurt us. We search for the one who abandoned us, the one who insulted us, the one who stole our peace, the one who seemed to stand between us and happiness. In the rawness of pain, blame feels like a place to rest. If we can say, "It is because of them," then for a moment we do not have to look at the deeper wound. We do not have to ask what old causes, what hidden seeds, what inner movements of body, speech, and mind have brought us to this meeting with sorrow. And yet the Buddha's teaching invites us into a more courageous seeing. Not a colder seeing, not a harsh, loveless judgment, but a seeing that reaches beneath appearances. There is no enemy, no rival, no hostile person, no invisible force, no power in the heavens or beneath the earth that can truly harm us beyond the ripening of our own unwholesome karma. This is a difficult truth, especially when our pain has a human face. When someone has lied to us, struck us, betrayed us, humiliated us, it may feel almost impossible to believe that the deepest danger is not the other person. The mind says, "But they did this to me, they caused this." And on the surface, yes, conditions came through them. Their words cut. Their actions shook our life. Their ignorance may have become the wind that broke our branches. But the law of karma is not looking only at the wind. It is looking at the seed, the soil, the season, and the fruit. Karma is not punishment. It is not a god sitting above the clouds, writing joy for one person and suffering for another. It is not superstition, not blind fate, not a sentence carved into stone before we were born. Karma means intentional action. It is what we create through body, speech, and mind. Every intention becomes a path. Every word spoken with cruelty, kindness, envy, patience, greedy, rishit, hatred, or compassion sends a movement through the stream of consciousness. Over time, these movements gather strength. They become tendencies. Tendencies become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes the world we carry with us. A person may move to another country, change their name, change their clothes, change the people around them. But if the mind remains unchanged, the same old suffering follows, not because the universe is cruel, but because seeds do not forget what they are. A seed of bitterness, when watered by resentment, will not bloom into peace. A seed of deceit, when protected by pride, will not become trust. A seed of hatred, when carried from one day into the next, does not vanish simply because we close our eyes and call ourselves innocent. This is why the old teaching says that no enemy can attack us except our own evil karma. An outer enemy may stand before us with anger, but their power is limited. They may injure the body, damage possessions, ruin reputation, or bring temporary fear. They may cause the world around us to shake. But unwholesome karma goes deeper. It follows the current of consciousness itself. It does not need a door to enter. It does not need a weapon to wound. It waits like a shadow that knows where we are going, not because it hates us, but because it belongs to what we have set in motion. Imagine a man who spends his life speaking with contempt. Wherever he goes, he cuts people with his tongue. At first he feels strong. People are afraid to answer him, They lower their eyes, they step aside. He thinks this is victory, but slowly, without noticing, he builds a world where no one feels safe near him. His children stop sharing their hearts. His friends become careful and distant. His own mind grows sharp, suspicious, and restless. Even when no one is attacking him, he feels surrounded by enemies. What is harming him now? Is it other people? Or is it the atmosphere created by his own repeated intentions? Imagine a woman who secretly rejoices when others fail. She smiles politely, but inside she compares, envies, and burns. Each time someone succeeds, her heart tightens. Each time someone is praised, she feels robbed. No one needs to punish her. Her own mind has become the prison. Even in a room full of celebration, she suffers. Even in the presence of good fortune, she cannot taste peace. This, too, is karma, not as an external curse, but as the natural fruit of a heart trained in comparison. Then imagines someone else, perhaps, who lives simply, who does not have much to give, but whose words are gentle. She restrains anger when anger rise her mistakes. She offers food when she can. She listens before she judges. She may still face illness. She may still lose loved ones. She may still meet the storms of life. But within her there is a refuge being built. Her wholesome karma waits for her, like a dear relative waiting at the road, saying, "You have come from far away. Come, rest here." Even when the outer world is hard, something in her heart remains fragrant. This is the contrast we must understand. Unwholesome karma is more dangerous than any enemy, because it is not outside us. We cannot outrun it through distance. We cannot silence it through argument. We cannot defeat it by winning against another person. It matures when conditions are ready, as surely as a seed becomes fruit. And wholesome karma is more dependable than any friend, because it does not abandon us when circumstances change. People who love us may be unable to save us. A mother may love her child with her whole life, but she cannot breathe wholesome intentions into the child's heart. She can guide, protect, pray, and sacrifice, but the child must still inherit the results of their own actions. No parent, no teacher, no friend, no ruler, no celestial being can replace the karma each being creates for themselves. This truth may sound lonely at first. Each person has their own karma. Each person must meet the fruits of what they have planted. Each person must walk through certain doors alone. But if we listen more deeply, it is not a lonely teaching. It is a liberating one, because if suffering were controlled entirely by enemies, then our peace would depend on controlling the world. We would have to make every person kind, every circumstance favorable, every word gentle, every road smooth. That is impossible. The world will not always obey our longing. People will misunderstand us. Bodies will age. Loved ones will change. Plans will break. Praise will turn into blame, gain into loss, meeting into separation. But if the deepest protection comes from karma, then we have a place to begin. We begin here with this breath, this thought, this intention forming quietly before it becomes speech. We begin in small space before anger becomes action. We begin in the moment when envy rises and we choose not to feed it. We begin when someone hurts us and we feel the old fire wanting to burn everything. Yet we pause and remember, if I answer darkness with darkness, I plant another night for myself. The Buddha does not ask us to deny pain. He does not ask us to pretend that harm is harmless, or injustice is not injustice. Rather, he asks us to see clearly where freedom can be found. If someone strikes us with hatred and we strike back with hatred, then two fires now burn. If someone lies and we let that lie turn our own heart into bitterness, then their action has become the condition for our new karma. In this way, the enemy outside invites the enemy inside to awaken. And if we are not mindful, we open the door. This is why the guarding of the heart is not a small matter. It is the beginning of all protection. To live wisely, we must understand that karma begins before the world sees anything. It begins in the mind. A thought of cruelty, cherished and repeated, is already a seed. A thought of compassion, nourished and acted upon, is also a seed. Speech gives that seed a voice, action gives it a body. Then life with its mysterious timing brings conditions. What we have planted grows. Some fruits ripen quickly, we speak harshly, and someone withdraws. We act generously, and trust appears. Other fruits take years or lifetimes. According to Buddhist understanding, a person may perform harmful deeds and seem to flourish for a while, just as a poisonous tree may stand green before its fruit appears. Another may live kindly and still endure hardship, because old seeds are ripening even while new wholesome seeds are being planted. This is why we should not judge too quickly. We see only a few pages of a very long story, but we can know this: nothing wholesome is wasted, and nothing unwholesome is without consequence. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that teaches with great sharpness. An enemy may harm an enemy, a hater may harm a hater, but a wrongly directed mind can harm oneself far more. These words are not meant to frighten us into despair. They are meant to wake us up. The most dangerous battlefield is not always in the marketplace, the family home, the court, the workplace, or the place where someone insulted us. The most dangerous battlefield is the untrained mind moving toward greed, hatred, and delusion, believing it is free while it prepares its own suffering. And the most sacred field is also the mind. When the mind turns toward loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, a different future begins. When mindfulness watches the storm without becoming the storm, a different future begins. When wisdom sees that anger burns first in the one who holds it, a different future begins. When meditation steadies the heart, when patience softens the mouth, when humility interrupts pride, when forgiveness releases the fist, a different future begins. If we wish to escape suffering and find true happiness, we cannot do it merely by rearranging the outside of life. We must cultivate the inner qualities that make happiness possible. Loving kindness teaches the heart not to harm. Compassion teaches it not to turn away. Appreciative joy teaches it not to envy. Equanimity teaches it not to collapse when life changes. Mindfulness teaches it to see. Wisdom teaches it to understand. Meditation teaches it to stay. Patience teaches it to endure without becoming cruel. This way of living is called wholesome because it leads toward freedom. It does not always give immediate comfort. Sometimes restraint feels painful. Sometimes telling the truth costs us something. Sometimes patience feels like swallowing fire. Sometimes compassion asks us to let go of the satisfaction of revenge. But every wholesome intention plants a refuge. Every moment of restraint weakens an old chain. Every act of kindness becomes a lamp placed somewhere along the road ahead. So when pain visits, let us not look only outward. Let us not spend our entire life asking, "Who did this to me?" Let us also ask, gently and honestly, "What is ripening now? Must I stop planting? What can I begin to plant today?" This question is not self-blame. It is self-responsibility. It is the beginning of dignity. It is the moment we stop handing our peace entirely to the world and begin to care for the causes of peace within ourselves. Each person has their own karma. This means each person has their own path of purification. No one can walk it for us, but no one can take it away from us either. The past may have planted sorrow, but the present can plant wisdom. Old karma may bring the storm, but present mindfulness can decide whether we add thunder to it. We may not control every result arriving at our door, but we can train the hand that opens the door, the voice that responds, the heart that chooses what to carry forward. And once we begin to look inward, we discover that karma does not disappear when a life ends. It travels with the stream of consciousness, waiting for the right conditions to bear fruit. And when that fruit begins to ripen, it does not ask whether we remember planting the seed. This is why the old teachings speak so strongly. There is no enemy outside us more dangerous than our own unwholesome karma. Not because karma is a monster hiding in the dark, not because the universe is waiting to punish us, but because every harmful intention we cultivate leaves an imprint in the heart. Greed leaves its hunger, hatred leaves its fire, cruelty leaves its coldness, deceit leaves its shadow, ignorance leaves its confusion. And if these things are repeated again and again, they become like travelers walking beside us, invisible for a while, silent for a while, but not gone. Imagine a person who has lived by harming others. Perhaps they did not begin as a terrible person. Perhaps they began with small acts of selfishness, small moments of indifference, a harsh word here, a betrayal there, a habit of stepping on weaker people to feel powerful. At first, life may not seem to object. They may still eat well, they may still wear fine clothes, they may still be praised by people who only see the surface. But deep within, something is being shaped. The mind that harms others becomes trained to see the world as a dangerous place. The heart that frightens others slowly learns to live in fear. Then one day, in this life or in another life, that person may find themselves surrounded by suspicion. They may be born into conditions where trust is rare, where every sound at night feels threatening, where kindness feels like a trick, where even a gentle hand seems suspicious, and they may wonder, why is the world so cruel to me? But from the view of karma, the world is not randomly cruel. The mind is meeting the fruit of what it once planted. The enemy waiting there is not a man with a sword. It is the bitter harvest of old violence. This does not mean we look at anyone who suffers and say, "You deserve this." That would be another form of cruelty, another seed of darkness. The teaching of karma is not given so we can judge the wounds of other people. It is given so we can become careful with our own hands, our own speech, our own intentions. When we see suffering, we respond with compassion. When we understand karma, we respond with responsibility. These two must walk together. Compassion without wisdom becomes helpless. Wisdom without compassion becomes hard. The path needs both. There may be someone who lies again and again. At first, lying seems useful. It hides a mistake. It protects an image. It helps them gain something quickly. A lie can feel like a shortcut across a difficult road, but every lie also does something subtle to the mind. It breaks the bridge between the heart and reality. It teaches the mind that words are tools for control, not vessels of truth. And a person who uses words this way may eventually lose the ability to rest in the words of others. Later, perhaps, they find themselves in a life where trust is almost impossible. Even when someone speaks sincerely, they doubt. Even when someone loves them, they test that love until it becomes exhausted. They may keep asking, "Who can I believe?" without seeing that their own past dishonesty has created a mind that cannot easily receive honesty. The old karma waits like an enemy, not by shouting, not by striking, but by making the heart unable to feel safe even in the presence of goodness. And there may be someone who is cruel, not always with fists, but with a sharp tongue, with mockery, with humiliation, with the pleasure of seeing another person shrink. Cruelty has many faces. It can wear authority, it can wear humor, it can wear righteousness. A person may say, "I am only telling the truth," while secretly enjoying the pain their words cause. They may say, "People are too sensitive," while refusing to examine the violence in their own manner. But the mind knows. Karma knows. Every act of cruelty freezes something inside the one who commits it. And later, when conditions gather, that coldness returns as loneliness. The person may find themselves rejected, misunderstood, placed in harsh surroundings, or born among people who have little tenderness to offer. Again, this is not a reason for us to condemn them. It is a reason to understand how delicate life is. It is a reason to speak more gently while we still can, because what we give to the world does not vanish in the air. It circles back through the field of causes and conditions. It becomes part of the atmosphere we must one day breathe. The difficult thing is that karma does not always ripen immediately. This is what confuses many people. We see someone dishonest become wealthy. We see someone harsh gain power. We see someone selfish surrounded by admiration. And then we see a kind person struggle, a patient person lose, a generous person fall ill or be betrayed. Looking only at one small slice of time, the heart cries out, "Where is justice? Where is the law of karma?" But karma is not a simple trade counted by the hour. It is not a coin inserted into a machine. It is more like a field containing many seeds from many seasons, each waiting for its own conditions. A seed buried underground is not dead, simply because we cannot see it. It may wait through dry weather. It may wait through cold. It may sleep beneath the soil while people walk above it, unaware then, when rain comes, when warmth comes, when the earth softens, it breaks open. What was hidden becomes visible. In the same way, a harmful action may not show its result today. A cruel person may laugh today. A deceitful person may celebrate today. A greedy person may gain more today. But delay is not disappearance. The seed remains in the stream of becoming, waiting. This is why the wise do not envy the success of the unwholesome. They do not become bitter when wrongdoers seem to rise. They understand that what we see is only one moment in a vast unfolding. If a man eats sweet poison, his smile in the first hour does not prove the poison is harmless. If a person plants thorns in the field may still look smooth for a season. But when the feet must walk there, the truth of the planting will be known. At the same time, the wise do not despair when goodness seems to suffer. A kind action may also be a seed hidden underground. A compassionate heart may not receive gratitude at once. A truthful person may be misunderstood. A patient person may be overlooked. But wholesome seeds, too, are alive. They are waiting for soil, water, light, and time. This is why the practice asks us to look deeper than immediate reward. If we do good only because we expect the world to applaud tomorrow, we will become tired very quickly. But if we do good because we understand that every intention shapes the heart and the future, then we can continue with quiet strength. Karma ripens through conditions. This is important. A seed alone is not enough. Place a seed on a stone and it may remain dry. Place it in fertile soil. Give it water, sunlight, space, and time, and it begins to grow. In the same way, karmic results arise when supporting circumstances appear. A past harmful action may remain dormant until there is a suitable body, a suitable environment, a suitable relationship, a suitable moment of vulnerability. Then it bears fruit. This is why life can change so suddenly. A person may feel stable for years, and then one meeting, one illness, one loss, one conflict opens a door through which old karma comes forward. But conditions do not only come from outside. Our present mind is also a condition. If anger arises and we feed it, we create conditions for old anger to grow stronger. If fear arises and we cling to it, old fear finds a home. If jealousy arises and we build stories around it, old jealousy becomes a forest. The past may hand us a spark, but the present decides whether to throw it into dry grass or place it carefully in water. This is where freedom begins. To understand bad karma is not to tremble before the past as if we are helpless prisoners. The Buddha's teaching never invites us into hopelessness. It invites us into wakefulness. Yes, there may be old seeds. Yes, there may be consequences already moving toward us. Yes, there may be debts of pain we do not remember creating. But right now, in this breath, we can stop adding more. Right now, the hand can refuse to strike. The tongue can refuse to lie. The mind can refuse to rejoice in another person's suffering. The heart can choose restraint. And restraint is not weakness. When anger says hurt them, wisdom can say, no, I will not plant that fire. When greed says, take what is, can say, no, I will not build my future from hunger. When pride says, crush them so you can feel higher. Compassion can say, no, I will not make loneliness for myself. In these small unseen moments, the direction of a life changes. No one may praise us for them. No one may even know. but karma knows because karma is not a judge outside us. It is the natural continuity of intention and result. Think of a person who once lived carelessly, who has spoken harshly, taken advantage of others, followed selfish desires, and now begins to awaken. At first, they may be frightened. They may look back and feel shame. They may think, "What have I done? What will come to me?" But if that fear becomes only self-hatred, it becomes another chain. The proper response is not to collapse. The proper response is to become sincere, to say, "From this day onward, I will be more careful. I cannot erase everything, but I can stop increasing the darkness. I can apologize where apology is possible. I can repair where repair is possible. I can cultivate kindness where cruelty once lived." This is how bad karma is met wisely. Not with denial, not with panic, not with blame, but with practice. We cultivate loving kindness because hatred has caused enough burning. We cultivate compassion because suffering has already filled the world. We cultivate sympathetic joy because envy has made the heart small. We cultivate equanimity because clinging and resentment have thrown us from one storm into another. We cultivate mindfulness so we can see the seed before it becomes a tree. We cultivate wisdom so we know which path leads to suffering and which path leads to release. Sometimes when the fruit of old karma ripens, we cannot avoid the pain. A loss comes and a sickness comes. A betrayal comes. A period of hardship comes. But even then, the present mind still matters. If we meet pain with bitterness, we plant more bitterness. If we meet pain with cruelty, we continue the wheel. But if we meet pain with patience, clarity, and compassion, then even an old painful result becomes the ground for new wholesome causes. The wound becomes a doorway. The difficulty becomes a teacher. The enemy is no longer allowed to create another enemy inside us. This is a tender and powerful point. Bad karma may bring suffering, but it does not force us to become bad. Pain may visit, but it does not have to become hatred. Fear may arise, but it does not have to become violence. The past may knock at the door, but the present can answer with a different voice. And each time we answer differently, we are no longer merely repeating the old story. We are beginning to purify it. So when the teaching says that harmful karma waits like an enemy, we should hear both the warning and the mercy inside it. The warning is clear: be careful, because nothing born from greed, hatred, or delusion truly protects you. Even if it gives you a temporary victory, it may become your future sorrow. But the mercy is also clear. If karma is made by intention, then intention can be trained. If suffering is planted, freedom can also be planted. If the mind has wandered into darkness, the mind can learn the way back toward light. No god, no demon, no powerful being can destroy a person whose conditions for such destruction are not present. And no outer enemy can harm us as deeply as the unwholesome seeds we ourselves continue to nourish. This is not meant to make us afraid of life. It is meant to make us intimate with our own heart, to look carefully at what we are planting when no one is watching, to ask, before speaking, is this truth or harm? To ask before acting, is this compassion or craving? To ask before holding a thought too long, is this leading me toward peace or toward another chain? Every day we are walking through a field of seeds. Some are old, some are new, some are already flowering, some are still hidden beneath the soil. We cannot always choose what has already been planted, but we can choose what we plant next. And that choice is sacred. That choice is the beginning of liberation. But the law of karma is not only a warning, it is also a great comfort, because wholesome karma waits for us too. And when wholesome karma waits for us, it does not wait like a stranger with a cold face. It waits like someone who has loved us for a long time. It waits like a mother hearing the footsteps of her child returning from a faraway road. It waits like a lamp left burning in the window, even through the rain, even through the night, even when the traveler himself has forgotten the way home. This is the beautiful contrast the Buddha invites us to see. If a person has planted goodness, If a person has lived with generosity, truthfulness, patience, forgiveness, compassion, humility, gratitude, and reverence, then wherever that being is reborn, those wholesome actions do not disappear. They do not become lost in the dust of time. They do not abandon the one who created them. They follow quietly, faithfully, like a dear relative waiting at the threshold, ready to welcome the traveler after a long and difficult journey. Sometimes we imagine karma as something distant, something mystical, something hidden behind the veil of lifetimes. But wholesome karma begins in the most human moments. It begins when we choose to give, even when no one praises us. It begins when we speak the truth, even when a lie would be easier. It begins when we hold back an angry word, when we forgive someone who cannot yet understand the pain they caused, when we bow our pride and admit, I was wrong. It begins when we care for someone weaker than ourselves, when we share food, share time, share patience, share listening. It begins when we see another person's suffering and do not turn away. These actions may seem small to the world. The world often notices the loud things, the shining things, the achievements that make noise. But karma notices the heart. Karma notices the intention. Karma receives every quiet act of goodness and places it deep into the stream of our being. And even before it ripens in some future life, it begins to soften us now. A generous act immediately loosens the tight fist of greed. A truthful word immediately brings dignity to the mind. Patience cools the fever of anger. Forgiveness releases the heart from carrying another person like a burning coal. Compassion makes the world less lonely. Humility opens the door to learning. Gratitude makes even a simple day feel abundant. Reverence reminds us that life is not something to dominate, but something to honor. This is why wholesome karma is not only a treasure for the future, it is medicine in the present. When we do good, the first person to receive the fragrance of that goodness is our own mind. Just as a flower does not have to wait for tomorrow to release its scent, a wholesome heart does not have to wait for another lifetime to begin tasting peace. Even in the middle of difficulty, something within becomes more spacious, more steady, more human. Think of a traveler who has wandered for a long time through storms. The road has been harsh. His clothes are soaked, his feet are tired. He has passed through forests where no voice answered him, through nights when the wind seemed to speak only of loneliness. Then suddenly, from far away, he sees a small light, a lamp in a window. Not a grand palace, not a place of fame, not the applause of the world. Just one warm light, steady and kind. Say you are not abandoned. Come closer. There is shelter here. Wholesome karma is like that lamp. Or imagine someone who has spent years feeling unseen, walking among crowds yet carrying a private sorrow. Then one day, in an unexpected place, they hear a familiar voice, a voice that knows their name, a voice that does not demand explanation, a voice that says, "You have arrived." That is how goodness returns. Not always in the form we expect, but with a feeling of recognition. A door opens, a hand is offered, a danger passes, a burden becomes bearable, a path appears where there seemed to be only walls. In this way, the good we have done becomes support. It may appear as inner strength at the exact moment we feel we cannot continue. It may appear as supportive people who enter our lives with kindness, not because we force them to come, but because some old seed has ripened. It may appear as an opportunity arriving at the right time, as a safe place to rest, as a teacher who speaks the words we needed to hear, as clarity in a moment of confusion. It may appear as the strange ability to endure hardship without becoming bitter, to lose something precious without losing our goodness, to be wounded by life without turning into a person who wounds others. This is one of the most tender blessings of wholesome karma. It does not promise that life will never hurt us. It does not promise that every road will be smooth, every relationship will last, every body will remain strong, every dream will unfold exactly as we hope. The Buddha never taught such a fragile kind of comfort. Instead, wholesome karma gives us a deeper refuge. It gives us the strength to meet what comes without being destroyed by it. It gives the mind a hidden reserve of courage. It gives the heart a memory of goodness, and from that memory we rise again. A person with wholesome karma may still face sickness, loss, misunderstanding, and change. But within that person, there may be a softness that does not collapse into hatred, a wisdom that does not rush to blame, a patience that can breathe through pain. When misfortune comes, they may grieve, but they do not have to become cruel. They may cry, but they do not have to poison the world with their suffering. They may fall, but something in them knows how to stand again. And sometimes, this is the greatest miracle. Not that we escape every storm, but that after the storm, we still have a heart capable of love. The world offers many forms of support, and some of them are beautiful. Friends can comfort us. Family can stand beside us. Wealth can provide medicine, shelter, and ease. Status can open doors. Knowledge can guide us. Society can protect us in certain ways. We should not despise these blessings. When they come through wholesome causes, they too are part of the unfolding of goodness. But worldly support is uncertain. Friends may leave, not always because they are bad, but because they too are carried by their own karma, their own fears, their own limitations. Wealth may vanish through illness, disaster, misjudgment, or the turning of time. Status can collapse with one rumor, one failure, one change in the winds of public opinion. Youth fades, beauty changes, power slips from the hand. Even the people who love us most cannot walk inside our mind and remove every sorrow. A mother may love her child beyond words. She may stay awake through the night, place food before the child, protect the child from cold, pray with all her strength, and offer everything she has. Yet even a mother's love cannot replace the child's own wholesome karma. She can guide, she can comfort, she can sacrifice, but she cannot breathe wisdom into a heart that refuses it. She cannot give the fruit of patience to someone who keeps planting anger. She cannot create peace for a person who continues to cultivate cruelty. Her love is precious, but karma is intimate in a way no other support can be. Wholesome karma stays close because it is woven into the very stream of one's own life. It is not outside us. It does not depend on another person remembering us, choosing us, approving us, or remaining with us. It travels through the current of consciousness. It belongs to the one who made it, like a shadow that follows the body, like a fragrance that clings to sandalwood. Wholesome action follows the doer and becomes a companion through time. This is why the wise do not look down on small acts of goodness. They understand that every moment of kindness is a future refuge being built. Every moment of restraint is a danger being weakened. Every moment of truthfulness is a lamp being lit. Every moment of compassion is a bridge being formed. We may not know when we will need that refuge, that lamp, that bridge, but one day, when the road grows dark, what we have planted will meet us. Perhaps it will meet us as a calm mind in the hour of death. Perhaps as a fortunate rebirth. Perhaps as the instinct to turn toward the Dharma when the world becomes too painful. Perhaps as trusting goodness when cynicism surrounds us. Perhaps as a human birth with enough intelligence, sensitivity, and conditions to practice. Perhaps as the simple feeling, deep in the bones, that cruelty is not the way, that hatred is not home, that there must be a nobler path. And this is why hope in the Buddha's teaching is not blind hope. It is not the hope that someone else will save us while we continue to live carelessly. It is a sober, luminous hope. It says, what is wholesome can be cultivated. What is unwholesome can be abandoned. The mind can be trained. The heart can be purified. The future is not fixed by despair. Every sincere act matters. If in the past we have created harm, we do not need to drown in regret. Regret can be useful only if it wakes us up. If it becomes self-hatred, it becomes another chain. The path asks for honesty, not despair. We acknowledge what has been done. We understand the danger of it, and then we plant differently. We become careful with our hands, careful with our speech, careful with the silent movements of the mind. We begin again, not because the past is meaningless, but because the present is powerful. And if we have done good, we do not need to become proud. Pride stains merit. Goodness becomes purer when it is offered without the need to be seen. The most beautiful wholesome karma is created by a heart that gives and releases, helps and forgets, bows and continues. Like rain falling on the earth, it does not ask which flower will praise it. It simply nourishes life. There is a quiet joy in living this way, not the restless joy of getting what we want, but the deeper joy of becoming someone we can trust. When we know that we are trying not to harm, trying to speak truth, trying to forgive, trying to understand, a kind of inner friendship begins. We no longer feel completely divided against ourselves. We may still have flaws, but we are walking in the direction of light, and that direction matters. To live with wholesome karma is to prepare a home for ourselves in the future. Not a home made of walls, but a home made of conditions for peace. A home made of loving intentions, clear understanding, and noble habits. A home where, after long wandering, the heart recognizes its own goodness and rests. So, when the Buddha speaks of karma, he is not merely warning us about suffering. He is showing us the dignity of our choices. He is reminding us that no act of love is wasted, no moment of patience disappears, no honest effort to purify the mind is meaningless. Somewhere, somehow, in the deep lawfulness of life, goodness knows how to return. It may return quietly. It may return after a long time. It may return in a form we did not expect, but it returns because it was never separate from us. It was planted in the field of our own becoming. This is why the Buddha's teaching turns our attention from blaming gods, enemies, or fate toward the mysterious but lawful unfolding of our own actions. And once we begin to see life in this way, something in us becomes both quieter and stronger. We stop looking at the world as if it were ruled by random punishment, blind luck, or the mood of some invisible power. We begin to understand that what touches our life does not arrive without conditions. What wounds us, what teaches us, what shakes us, what opens us, all of it moves through causes, through hidden roots, through seeds planted long before the fruit appears. In many cultures, people speak of heavenly kings, divine rulers, spirits, demons, cosmic beings, forces of darkness, forces of fate. Some speak of gods who bless, gods who punish, spirits who disturb, devils who tempt, powers that can raise a person up or strike a person down. Whether we take these images literally, symbolically, or simply as the language of human fear, the teaching of karma points us toward a profound truth. No being, no force, no ruler of heaven or earth can truly harm us if the causes for harm are not present within our own karmic field. This does not mean that nothing painful can happen. It does not mean the world is free from danger. It does not mean cruel people do not exist, or that injustice is imaginary. The Buddha's teaching was never an invitation to deny the pain of the world. It was an invitation to look deeper than the surface. On the surface we may say, this person hurt me, this event ruined me, that enemy destroyed my peace, and in the ordinary sense there may be truth there. Someone may speak harshly, someone may betray, a storm may come, a sickness may arise, a loss may break the heart. These are real experiences, and they deserve compassion. But if we look only at the surface, we remain trapped in blame. We imagine that the outer event is the whole cause of our suffering. Karma asks us to look more carefully. An outer event may be the visible trigger, but it is not always the deepest root. Suffering arises when causes and conditions meet. A harsh word enters the ear, but hatred arises from the mind that receives it. A loss enters the life, but despair grows according to the habits and understandings already present in the heart. A difficulty appears in the world, but whether it becomes bitterness, wisdom, fear, patience, revenge, or compassion depends on many inner conditions. Two people may stand in the same storm, yet they do not experience the same storm. One person loses a job and feels as if life has betrayed them. Fear floods the mind. Resentment grows. They begin to blame everyone. They speak cruelly to those who love them. They lose sleep, lose trust, lose their own center. The event is painful, yes, but the suffering multiplies because of the inner seeds that are watered by it. Another person loses a job and feels the shock just as deeply. They worry, they grieve, they are uncertain. But somewhere inside, there is patience. There is the memory of having survived before. There is humility. There is the willingness to learn. They ask for help without shame. They simplify their life. They discover strength they did not know they had. The same kind of event becomes not only loss, but also a teacher. This is not because one person is loved by heaven and the other is hated. It is not because a God smiled on one and punished the other. It is because the visible condition met different inner causes. The field was different. The seeds were different. The habits of mind were different. And so the fruit was different. In the same way, two people may hear the same insult. One burns for days. The insult becomes a fire they carry from room to room. They repeat it in their mind. They sharpen it. They add meaning to it. They tell themselves, I have been humiliated. I must answer. I must win. From one word, a whole forest of anger grows. Another person hears the same insult and feels the sting. They are not made of stone. They feel the heat rise, but they pause, they breathe, they see this is pain. This is anger beginning. If I follow it, I will create more suffering. Perhaps they remain silent. Perhaps they respond firmly, but without cruelty. Perhaps they walk away. The insult enters their life, but it does not become poison. Why? Because mindfulness stands at the gate. Because patience has been practiced. Because wisdom has begun to recognize fire before it spreads. So when the teaching says that even a god, a spirit, a demon, a heavenly king, or a powerful force cannot harm us, unless it is the time for unwholesome karma to ripen, it is pointing to this lawfulness. Harm does not bloom from nowhere. Pain does not become suffering without supporting conditions. Even when the outer world is harsh, the inner world participates in what happens next. This can be a difficult teaching, because if misunderstood, it can sound cold. Some may hear it and think, so if someone suffers, it is their fault. That is not the heart of the Buddha's way. To use karma as a weapon against the suffering is itself unwholesome. To look at someone in pain and say, this is your karma, without compassion, is to misunderstand both karma and compassion. Karma is not a tool for judging others. It is a mirror for examining ourselves. When we see someone suffer, our first duty is not to explain their past. Our first duty is to respond with kindness in the present. If a person is hungry, feed them. If someone is unsafe, protect them. If injustice is happening, do not stand aside and call it karma. Karma includes action. Karma includes speech. Karma includes the courage to prevent harm where we can. Understanding karma does not mean we become passive. It does not mean we fold our hands and accept cruelty. It does not mean we allow oppression, abuse, or violence to continue, because everything has a cause. That would be confusion. The Buddha's teaching is not fatalism. Fatalism says, nothing can be changed. Karma says, everything is shaped by causes, and causes can be transformed. Fatalism says, this is my destiny, so I need not act. Karma says, this moment is also a seed. How I act now matters. Fatalism makes the heart heavy. Karma, understood rightly, awakens the heart. It reminds us that even in pain we are not powerless. We may not control what has already ripened, but we can choose what we plant now. We may not be able to erase yesterday's storm, but we can decide whether today we will scatter salt or sow medicine. This is why our response is so important. When harm comes, we often think our only choices are to attack, to collapse, or to run away. But the path of wisdom shows another way. We can act without hatred. We can protect without cruelty. We can speak truth without poisoning the heart. We can resist injustice without becoming addicted to revenge. A person who harms us may be the outer condition, but if we answer with hatred, hatred becomes our new karma. If we answer with deceit, deceit becomes our new karma. If we answer with violence of heart, even if our cause seems justified, violence leaves a mark within us. It plants a seed, and someday, under conditions we may not expect, that seed will seek its fruit. This does not mean we must be weak. Compassion is not weakness. Patience is not surrender to evil. Mindfulness is not silence in the face of wrongdoing. A compassionate person may still say no. A mindful person may still leave. A wise person may still take action, call for justice, set boundaries, protect the vulnerable, and speak clearly. But they do so without letting hatred become the master of the house. Because in the deepest sense, our true protection is not superstition. It is not the hope that some unseen power will favor us while rejecting others. It is not revenge. It is not control. It is not making ourselves hard so that nothing can touch us. True protection is ethical living. True protection is a mind trained in compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. Morality protects us because it prevents us from creating the very causes that later return as suffering. When we refrain from harming, stealing, exploiting, lying, and intoxicating the mind with heedlessness, we are not merely obeying rules. We are building a safe path beneath our own feet. We are making the world less dangerous, beginning with the world of our own actions. Compassion protects us because it softens the impulse to strike back. It helps us see that every being trembles before pain, just as we do. Even those who act cruelly are often driven by ignorance, fear, craving, or wounds they do not understand. To see this does not excuse their actions, but it protects our heart from becoming a second battlefield. Mindfulness protects us because it allows us to notice the moment before karma becomes action. A thought of anger arises. Mindfulness sees it. A desire to speak sharply arises. Mindfulness sees it. A wave of jealousy, pride, fear, or greed arises. Mindfulness sees it. And when something is seen clearly, we are no longer completely enslaved by it. We have space. We have choice. We have the possibility of planting a different seed. Wisdom protects us because it understands causes and consequences. It knows that nothing stands alone. It knows that today's speech becomes tomorrow's relationship, that today's intention becomes tomorrow's character, that today's habit becomes tomorrow's destiny. Wisdom does not need the universe to be controlled, because wisdom has learned how to walk in the universe with care. Many people spend their lives trying to protect themselves from imagined enemies, while neglecting the real danger within. They fear curses, bad luck, jealous people, spirits, demons, misfortune, and the anger of heaven. Yet they speak carelessly, act selfishly, nourish resentment, deceive others, and ignore the suffering they create. It is like building a strong fence around a house, while leaving a fire burning in the center of the floor. The Buddha's teaching turns us inward, not to make us afraid of ourselves, but to make us honest. The enemy we must understand is not outside alone. The danger is the untrained mind, the mind that moves toward greed without seeing greed, the mind that moves toward hatred without seeing hatred, the mind that moves toward delusion and calls it truth. Such a mind can harm us more deeply than any outer enemy, because it walks with us everywhere. If a powerful being could harm us without cause, then the world would be chaos. Goodness would have no meaning. Training, the mind would have no value. A person could live with kindness, restraint, generosity, and wisdom, and still be destroyed at random by the whim of a higher power. But the teaching of karma says life is not like that. There is mystery, yes. There is much we do not see, but beneath the mystery there is lawfulness. Seeds bear fruit according to their nature. Fire burns according to its nature. Kindness has one kind of result, hatred has another. This truth should not make us proud when we are happy, nor ashamed when we suffer. It should make us careful. When happiness comes, we receive it with gratitude, knowing it has causes. When suffering comes, we meet it with patience, knowing it also has causes. And in both happiness and suffering, we continue to plant wisely. A beautiful life is not one where nothing difficult ever happens. Such a life may not exist. A beautiful life is one where difficulty does not completely corrupt the heart. It is one where pain becomes understanding, where fear becomes humility, where loss becomes tenderness, where insult becomes patience, where uncertainty becomes practice. If we know this, we will stop begging the universe to remove every unpleasant condition while we continue creating new causes of suffering. We will stop asking why peace does not come while feeding anger every day. We will stop wondering why trust disappears while speaking falsely. We will stop searching for protection in lucky signs, rituals without understanding, or the defeat of our enemies, while forgetting the simple protection of a clean conscience. The clean conscience is a quiet refuge. It is not dramatic. It does not need applause. But when night comes, it allows the heart to rest. A person who has tried to live honestly, to repair harm, to restrain cruelty, to cultivate goodwill, carries a kind of invisible shelter. Even when difficulties arise, they do not feel completely abandoned by themselves. Their own goodness stands near them. And this is why the wise do not fear the world in the same way. They may still be cautious. They may still feel pain. They may still grieve, age, lose, and die. But they know that the deepest safety is not found in escaping all conditions. It is found in purifying intention within conditions. It is found in meeting life with a heart that does not create more darkness than it has inherited. So if someone asks, can a god harm me? Can a demon destroy me? Can a powerful force ruin my life? The answer from the path of karma is subtle but clear. Without causes, no. Without conditions, no. Without the ripening of unwholesome seeds, no harm can truly take root. But if the causes are present, even a small event may open a great wound. And if wholesome causes are strong, even a great danger may become a doorway to wisdom. Therefore, our task is not to live in fear of unseen powers. Our task is to cultivate visible goodness, to speak more gently, to act more cleanly, to watch the mind more carefully, to forgive where forgiveness is possible, to set boundaries where boundaries are needed, to help where help is needed, to refuse hatred again and again, not because hatred is unnatural, but because hatred is dangerous. Every moment we are living among causes, every thought leans toward a future, every intention shapes the one who carries it. And while we cannot see all the karma from the past, we can see the quality of the seed in our hand right now. This is enough to begin. And if even the most powerful imagined forces cannot save or destroy us without causes, then we must look carefully at the people we love most and ask what we can truly do for them. There is perhaps no image more tender than a mother watching over her child in the quiet hours of the night. The house has grown still. The world outside has gone dark, but she is awake, listening for the smallest change in the child's breathing. A little cough, a restless turn, a faint cry from a dream, and her heart rises before her body does. She reaches out, touches the forehead, checks for fever, pulls the blanket closer, whispers words the child may not even hear. And in that whisper, there is a whole universe of love. She feeds the child before she feeds herself. She worries about the child's hunger, the child's health, the child's future, the child's loneliness, the child's mistakes. She carries hope and fear in the same heart. When the child is small, she protects the tiny body from cold, from sharp corners, from strangers, from danger. When the child grows, she protects in another way, with advice, with warnings, with silent prayers, with sleepless nights spent imagining roads she cannot walk beside them. Sometimes, a mother looks at her child and thinks, if suffering must come, let it come to me instead. This is the language of worldly love at its purest. Not perfect, not always wise, not free from fear or attachment, but deep, fierce, and willing to give everything. A mother may hide her own exhaustion behind a smile. She may swallow her own sadness so the child can feel safe. She may work until her back aches, pray until her voice breaks, and forgive more times than anyone else would understand. And yet, the Buddha's teaching brings us to a truth, both gentle and difficult. However much a mother loves her child, she cannot care for that child as completely as the child's own wholesome karma can. This is not said to make love smaller. It is said to help us understand the boundary of love. A mother's love can be vast, but it is still not all-powerful. A father's protection can be strong, but it still cannot stand in every place. Parents can open doors, but they cannot walk every road inside the child's mind. They can hold a little hand while crossing the street, but they cannot hold that hand through every crossing of life. They can teach what is right, but they cannot force wisdom to bloom. They can warn against anger, dishonesty, cruelty, and carelessness, but they cannot enter the heart and remove every unwholesome intention before it becomes action. This is where love bows before karma. Parents can give education. They can give shelter. They can give food, medicine, clothing, books, warmth, and discipline. They can offer guidance when life becomes confusing. They can pass down values that took them years to understand. They can say, be kind. They can say, do not lie. They can say, respect others. They can say, do not harm yourself. They can say, think carefully before you act. And if they are wise, they do not only say these things, they live them, so the child can learn not only through words, but through the atmosphere of the home. But even then, there is a place where parents must stop. They cannot breathe for the child. They cannot feel every pain before the child feels it. They cannot choose every thought that appears in the child's mind. They cannot prevent every foolish desire, every bad friendship, every careless word, every moment of pride, jealousy, greed, or hatred. They cannot erase the consequences when the child has acted from an unwholesome mind. They cannot take the fruit of the child's actions and eat it on the child's behalf. If a child plants thorns, the mother may weep beside the field, but the thorns still grow. If a child plants flowers, even if the mother is far away, their fragrance still follows that child. This is not punishment. This is the natural unfolding of causes and results. A mother may love her child more than her own life, but if that child grows into a person who deceives, harms, and abuses others, the mother's tears cannot wash away the karma of those actions. She may beg heaven, she may blame herself, she may say, let me suffer instead. But the moral law of life cannot be bribed by grief. Each intention leaves its mark. Each action carries its seed. Each person eventually meets what has been planted through body, speech, and mind. And in the same way, if a child has cultivated goodness, if that child has learned restraint, honesty, generosity, compassion, humility, and mindfulness, then even when the mother is no longer there to protect them, wholesome karma stands near like a quiet guardian. It does not shout. It does not announce itself, but at the right time, it becomes trust from others, inner strength in hardship, calm in danger, clarity in confusion, and unexpected help on the road. This is why wholesome karma is more reliable than even the most devoted human protection. Human love can be separated by distance. It can be weakened by illness. It can be confused by fear. It can be taken away by death. But wholesome karma, once created, belongs to the one who created it. It follows not like a chain, but like a blessing earned through the heart's own purity. To understand this is painful at first, especially for those who love deeply, because love naturally wants to protect. Love wants to control the storm. Love wants to stand between the beloved and every wound. A mother does not want to hear that her child must face anything alone. A father does not want to accept that his strength cannot cover every weakness. A friend does not want to admit that loyalty cannot rescue someone from all consequences. A partner does not want to believe that affection cannot heal a mind determined to destroy itself. But the Buddha's teaching does not make us cold. It makes us honest, and honesty, when held with compassion, becomes a deeper kind of love, because if we believe we can save our loved ones by controlling them, we may become afraid, possessive, and harsh. We may mistake anxiety for care. We may think love means never allowing them to struggle, never allowing them to choose, never allowing them to learn from what they have done. We may become so desperate to protect their body and reputation that we forget to protect the most important thing, the quality of their mind. But when we understand karma, we begin to love differently. We still feed, shelter, guide, comfort, and support. We still show up. We still listen. We still hold the hand when the hand is offered. We still speak the truth even when it trembles in our mouth. But we also know that our loved ones need more than our protection. They need their own goodness. They need their own wisdom. They need their own capacity to pause before anger becomes speech, before desire becomes action, before fear becomes cruelty. The greatest gift we can give to someone we love is not a life without difficulty. No one can give that. The greatest gift is to help them create wholesome causes. Teach them kindness, not as a decoration, but as a way of survival. Teach them that every being fears pain, just as they do. Teach them that a cruel word may feel powerful for a moment, but it leaves bitterness in the one who speaks it. Teach them restraint, not as repression, but as freedom from regret. Teach them honesty, so their heart does not have to live in hiding. Teach them generosity, so they do not become imprisoned by their own wanting. Teach them mindfulness, so they can see a harmful impulse before it becomes a wound in the world. And teach them by example. A child who sees a parent apologize learns that humility is not weakness. A child who sees a parent speak gently during anger learns that anger does not have to be obeyed. A child who sees a parent give without showing off learns that goodness does not need applause. A child who sees a parent sit quietly with pain learns that suffering does not always have to become blame. This kind of teaching may not look dramatic. It may not feel like rescue, but it plants seeds that can protect a person in places where no mother, no father, no teacher, no friend can go. For this teaching extends beyond the bond between parent and child. Every relationship has this same sacred limit. A spouse can love you, encourage you, comfort you, and walk beside you through many seasons. But a spouse cannot purify your intentions for you. A spouse cannot make you faithful in your heart if you choose deception. A spouse cannot turn bitterness into compassion unless you are willing to practice. They can hold you when you are grieving, but they cannot grieve in your place. They can forgive you, but they cannot remove the karmic weight of what you refuse to understand. A friend can support you with loyalty and warmth. A true friend can remind you of your better self when you forget. They can pull you back from harmful choices, speak honestly when others flatter you, and sit beside you in silence when words are useless. But even the best friend cannot carry your karma. If you keep planting causes of suffering, your friend may suffer watching you, but the fruit will still ripen in your life. A teacher can point to the path. A spiritual guide can explain the Dharma, offer methods, correct misunderstandings, and encourage practice. But no teacher can walk the path for a student who refuses to take a step. No monk, no master, no community can lend you awakening like a borrowed coat. They can light a lamp, but you must open your own eyes. Even leaders and communities have limits. A good society can create conditions for safety, education, and fairness. A good community can support moral living, but no law can make a person pure from within. No system can remove greed from a heart that continues to feed it. No crowd, however loving, can replace personal responsibility. In the end, each person must meet the fruits of their own intentions. This does not mean we abandon one another. It means we stop confusing love with ownership. We stop imagining that compassion requires us to control every outcome. We stop believing that worry itself is protection. Sometimes, worry is only the mind's way of circling what it cannot command. Real love is wiser than worry. Real love says, I will help you create good causes. Real love says, I will not support what destroys you. Real love says, I care for you too much to praise your anger, excuse your cruelty, or feed your delusion. Real love says, you are responsible, and because you are responsible, you are also capable of transformation. There is great dignity in this. If our karma belongs to us, then our future is not entirely in the hands of others. We are not merely victims of family, society, fate, or invisible powers. Yes, we inherit many conditions. Yes, we meet results from causes we may not remember. Yes, life is unequal and mysterious. But in this very moment, we still have a field in front of us. We still have seeds in our hand. We can still choose a softer word. We can still refrain from harm. We can still tell the truth. We can still begin again. A mother's love may be one of the most beautiful forms of love in the human world. But even that love becomes more beautiful when it understands karma. Then it does not cling so tightly. It does not suffocate the child with fear. It does not try to own the road. It blesses, guides, protects where it can, and teaches the child how to become protected from within. Because the day will come when the child must walk alone. Perhaps not forever, perhaps not outwardly, but inwardly. Every being has moments no one else can enter. The moment of temptation, the moment of anger, the moment of grief, the moment of decision, the moment when no one is watching, and the heart chooses what kind of seed to plant. In that moment, a mother cannot stand in for the child, a friend cannot stand in, a teacher cannot stand in. Only the person's own mindfulness, own conscience, and own accumulated goodness can rise and say, do not go that way, choose what is clean, choose what brings peace. That is why wholesome karma is like a beloved relative waiting at the door when we arrive in a strange land. We may not know how it came to meet us there, but it knows us. It was made by us. It carries the fragrance of our past kindness. It becomes shelter when outer shelter fails. It becomes courage when human voices are far away. It becomes light when the road grows dim. And unwholesome karma is the opposite. It is like an enemy waiting in the shadows, not because the universe hates us, but because we ourselves once sent that enemy ahead through harmful intention. Wherever we go, what we have cultivated finds us. So if we truly love someone, let us not only ask, how can I keep them safe today? Let us also ask, how can I help them become the kind of person whose own karma will protect them tomorrow? This is a more patient love, a more humble love, a love that feeds the body but also nourishes the conscience, a love that embraces but also teaches, a love that prays but also practices, a love that knows tears are not enough, good causes must be made, and for ourselves too we must receive this teaching tenderly. We may wish someone else could save us completely. We may long for a parent, a partner, a teacher, or a divine power to take away the results of our confusion. But the path asks us to grow. It asks us to become intimate with our own mind. It asks us to stop blaming the world for every pain and to begin planting differently, right where we stand. This truth may feel heavy at first, but the Buddha expressed it with unforgettable clarity in the verses of the Dhammapada. The Dhammapada offers a verse that feels less like a sentence from an ancient book and more like a mirror held before the heart. It says, an enemy may harm an enemy, a hater may harm a hater, but a wrongly directed mind can do oneself far greater harm. Pause with that for a moment. An enemy may hurt us, a hater may speak against us, someone may betray us, insult us, abandon us, or misunderstand us. These things are painful, and the Buddha never asked us to pretend that pain is not real. But he points to something even more intimate, more dangerous, and more easily overlooked. He points to the mind within us when it turns in the wrong direction, because an enemy stands outside the gate, but a wrongly directed mind is already inside the house. It knows our weaknesses, it knows our fears, it knows the places where we are still hungry for praise, still afraid of rejection, still clinging to old wounds, still trying to prove that we are right. And when such a mind is guided by greed, hatred, delusion, jealousy, resentment, arrogance, cruelty, or careless desire, it does not need anyone else to destroy our peace. It can do the work by itself. This is why the verse is so powerful. It does not merely warn us about the cruelty of others. It invites us to look at the direction of our own mind, not to shame ourselves, not to condemn ourselves, but to understand. For if we do not understand the mind, we may spend our whole life guarding against enemies outside, while leaving the real danger unexamined within. What is a wrongly directed mind? It is the mind that runs after what should not be pursued. It is the mind that clings to what cannot be kept. It is the mind that burns with anger and calls that burning strength. It is the mind that feeds jealousy and calls it love. It is the mind that protects pride and calls it dignity. It is the mind that repeats suffering and calls it happiness. A wrongly directed mind is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It says, "You deserve to hurt them back." It says, "Just this once, no one will know." It says, "If you are not better than them, then you are nothing." It says, "Hold on to this anger, because without it you will be weak." It says, "Take more, you still do not have enough." It's do not apologize, do not forgive, do not listen. Protect yourself by hardening your heart. And if we are not mindful, we believe it. Then the mind becomes both the archer and the target. It shoots the arrow, and it receives the wound. It creates the fire, and it lives in the smoke. It builds the prison. And then it sits inside wondering who locked the door. This is the tragedy of ignorance. We think we are defending ourselves, but we are hurting ourselves. We think we are winning, but we are losing the very peace we seek. We think we are controlling the world, but we are being dragged by our own untrained reactions. The mind creates worlds. A resentful mind can take a neutral word and turn it into an insult. Someone speaks briefly because they are tired and resentment says, "They look down on you." Someone forgets to reply and resentment says, "They do not care." Someone offers advice and resentment says, "They are attacking you." In this way, the world becomes full of enemies. Not because everyone has changed, but because the mind is coloring everything with suspicion and pain. A greedy mind turns enough into poverty. It may have food, shelter, friends, and health, but it still feels poor because someone else has more. It sees another person's success and feels robbed. It receives a blessing and immediately asks for the next one. It cannot rest in gratitude because craving keeps moving the finish line farther away. To such a mind, life is never enough. Even abundance becomes hunger. A hateful mind turns every face into a threat. It does not ask, "What is this person suffering?" It asks, "How can I protect myself from them?" It does not see human beings. It sees opponents, obstacles, and dangers, and slowly, the heart grows lonely. Even in a crowd, hatred isolates us. Even among family, it makes us live like a soldier in enemy territory. A deluded mind repeats suffering while calling it happiness. It chases pleasure without wisdom. It mistakes excitement for meaning, possession for security, admiration for love, distraction for freedom. It touches something sweet, becomes attached, fears losing it, suffers when it changes, and then runs again toward the same pattern, hoping for a different result. This is how delusion keeps the wheel turning. It covers the chain with flowers and calls it a necklace. This is not an abstract teaching. We can see it in everyday life. Imagine a person in an argument. They are sharp, quick, and clever. They know exactly which words will cut. The other person says something careless, and suddenly the mind rises like a storm. Pride steps forward. Anger takes the tongue. The person speaks with force. They expose weaknesses. They win the argument. The room goes silent. No one can answer them, but afterward, what remains? The face of someone they love has changed. Trust has been wounded. A distance has opened. The person won the argument, but lost peace. They protected their position, but damaged tenderness. Later, When the house is quiet, the words return, not the other person's words, but their own. They hear the cruelty in their voice. They feel the loneliness of having been right in the wrong way. Who harmed them most in that moment? Was it the other person? Or was it the mind turned wrong? The mind that valued victory more than love? Or imagine someone who gains money dishonestly. At first, the mind is excited. It says, "This is success. This is opportunity. Everyone does it. I am only taking what life has denied me. The money comes." The person buys comfort, status, perhaps even admiration outwardly. It looks like gain, but inwardly something has been sold. The mind becomes restless. It begins to fear discovery. It studies people's faces for suspicion. It cannot relax when the phone rings. It cannot sleep easily. Even when no one accuses them, conscience speaks in the quiet. A shadow follows the pleasure. The money is in the hand, but peace has left the heart. Who is the enemy then? Is it the law? Is it society? Is it the person who might expose them? Or is it the greedy mind that made them believe that wealth without integrity could ever become true happiness? Or imagine someone protecting pride. A relationship is wounded. Both people are in pain. One apology could soften the whole situation, but pride says do not bend. If you speak first, you lose. If you admit fault, you become small. So the person waits. Days pass, then months. Love is still there, but it is buried under silence. They miss the other person, but they rehearse their grievance. They want closeness, but they defend distance. Pride stands guard at the door of the heart, not realizing it is keeping love outside. And perhaps years later, they wonder why life feels empty. They say, "They should have come to me." They say, "They should have understood." Maybe that is partly true, but still, the question remains. How much suffering was created by the mind that refused humility? How much warmth was sacrificed to the need to be untouchable? This is how the mind harms itself, not always through obvious evil, but through small loyalties to unwholesome states. A little resentment protected every day, a little dishonesty justified every day, a little arrogance fed every day, a little cruelty excused because we were hurt. These things gather, they become habits. Habits become character, character becomes destiny, and destiny becomes the field where karma ripens. The Buddha's teaching is not meant to make us afraid of the mind. It is meant to make us responsible for it, because the same mind that can become our enemy can also become our refuge. If a wrongly directed mind can harm us more deeply than an outside enemy, then a rightly directed mind can protect us more deeply than any wall, weapon, title, or shelter. A mind trained in compassion will not easily create enemies. A mind trained in mindfulness will notice anger before it becomes speech, craving before it becomes action, jealousy before it becomes poison. A mind trained in wisdom will see that every intention is a seed, and every seed has a season. Such a mind does not make life free from difficulty. It does not stop all loss, sickness, aging, separation, or disappointment, but it changes how we meet them, and that changes everything. When insult comes, a rightly directed mind does not immediately drink the poison. It pauses, it breathes, it asks, "Is this worth planting hatred in my own heart?" When desire comes, it does not blindly obey. It asks, "Will this lead to peace, or will it deepen bondage?" When jealousy comes, it recognizes the pain beneath comparison. It learns to rejoice in the good fortune of others, knowing that another person's light does not steal our own. When grief comes, it allows tears, but does not turn sorrow into bitterness. When success comes, it receives with gratitude, but does not build identity upon what must change. This is protection, not the protection of hiding from life, but the protection of meeting life with a noble heart. Not the protection of never being hurt, but the protection of not adding new suffering through blind reaction. Not the protection of controlling others, but the protection of mastering one's own intention. In this way, the teaching becomes deeply compassionate. It says, "Look within, because within is where freedom begins." Do not wait for the whole world to become gentle before you become peaceful. Do not wait for every person to understand you before you stop hating. Do not wait for perfect conditions before you plant wholesome seeds. If you wait for the world to be pure before you purify your mind, you may wait forever. But if you turn the mind rightly now, even in an imperfect world, you begin to walk differently. You may still meet people who dislike you. You may still encounter unfairness. You may still be misunderstood. But these things no longer have complete power over your inner life. They may touch the surface, but they do not have to govern the depths. They may bring pain, but they do not have to create hatred. They may bring loss, but they do not have to destroy wisdom. This is the dignity of practice. Every moment becomes a place where karma is being shaped. When we choose patience instead of retaliation, a new future is being planted. When we choose honesty instead of gain through deceit, a new future is being planted. When we choose humility instead of pride, a new future is being planted. When we choose compassion instead of cruelty, even towards someone difficult, a new future is being planted. And perhaps this is why the verse stays with us. It is simple, but it follows us into daily life. It follows us into conversations. It follows us into business decisions. It follows us into family wounds. It follows us when we are alone with our thoughts. It asks, quietly but firmly, where is your mind going now? Toward harm or toward healing? Toward freedom? Toward more suffering? Or toward the end of suffering? We do not need to answer with words. We answer with the next intention, the next breath, the next choice. If the mind has been wrongly directed for a long time, we need not despair. A river that has flowed one way can be guided into a new channel, patiently, steadily, with effort. The Buddha did not teach that we are condemned by our past mental habits. He taught that causes can change, conditions can change, understanding can arise. A person who once lived carelessly can become mindful. A person who once spoke harshly can learn gentleness. A person who once burned with anger can cultivate compassion. A person who once wandered in delusion can awaken wisdom. This is why the teaching is both serious and hopeful. Serious because nothing is lost. Every intention matters. Every unwholesome state has consequences. We cannot throw fire and expect only others to burn. Hopeful because nothing is fixed. Every wholesome intention matters too. Every moment of restraint, every act of kindness, every honest confession, every breath of mindfulness, every effort to understand rather than condemn, becomes part of the path. We are always planting. We are always shaping the direction of the mind. So when the Dhammapada says that a wrongly directed mind can do oneself far greater harm, it is not trying to frighten us into hatred of ourselves. It is inviting us to become intimate guardians of our inner life, to notice the first spark before the forest burns, to notice the first lie before it becomes a lie, to notice the first hardening before love turns cold. And once we see this, the spiritual path becomes very practical. It is not far away. It is not only in temples, scriptures, rituals, or distant mountains. It is here in the way we think about someone who offended us. It is here in the way we speak when we are tired. It is here in the way we handle desire when no one is watching. It is here in the way we carry success, failure, praise, blame, gain, and loss. The enemy outside may appear for a moment, but the mind is with us day and night. Therefore, to train the mind is the greatest protection. To direct the mind toward goodness is the beginning of safety. To bathe the mind in wisdom is the beginning of liberation. So the path is not merely to avoid pain. It is to train the mind in the qualities that lead away from suffering and toward true happiness. Every human being, whether they say it openly or hide it deep inside, longs for the same simple thing: to be free from suffering and to live with some measure of peace. We may speak different languages, follow different customs, carry different memories, but in the quietest place of the heart, we all want relief. We want the pain to soften. We want the mind to stop burning. We want to find a kind of happiness that does not collapse the moment life changes. And yet, because we do not understand the path clearly, we often search for joy in ways that create more sorrow. We chase after what we crave, believing that if we can possess enough, control enough, be admired enough, then the heart will finally rest. We compare ourselves with others, and what begins as a small glance becomes a wound. Someone else's success feels like our failure. Someone else's comfort feels like an accusation against our own life. We try to control people, control outcomes, control the future, as if tightening our grip will make the world obey our wishes. And when we are hurt, we may think revenge will bring balance. We imagine that if the other person suffers, our own suffering will become lighter. But the Buddha's path teaches us to look more carefully. Craving does not end craving. Comparison does not bring peace. Control does not free the heart. Revenge does not heal the wound. These things may give the mind a moment of heat, a moment of false strength, but afterward the same fire remains, and often it burns even deeper. If we truly want to escape suffering and find joy, we cannot simply rearrange the outside world. We must cultivate a different kind of mind. This is why the path speaks of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, right mindfulness, wisdom, meditation, and patient endurance. These are not beautiful words for ceremonies only. They are not decorations for a spiritual life. They are the very climate of a wholesome mind. They are the psychology of goodness. When these qualities live in us, the heart no longer needs to create new pain. In order to protect itself, it begins to know another way. Loving kindness is the wish for beings to be well. It begins gently, almost like a candle being lit in a dark room. It does not ask whether a person is perfect before wishing them peace. It does not say, I will be kind only when the world is kind to me. Loving kindness is the courage to let goodwill arise even in a world where not everyone will understand us, appreciate us, or treat us fairly. It is the inner movement that says, may I be free from hatred. May you be free from hatred. May all beings be safe from the fires that consume them. This does not mean we become naive. Loving kindness is not the same as allowing harm. It does not require us to remain close to those who destroy our peace. Sometimes loving kindness creates boundaries. Sometimes it walks away. Sometimes it speaks firmly. But even when it says no, it does not need to poison itself with hatred. That is its strength. It protects the heart from becoming what wounded it. Compassion is the response to suffering. Where loving kindness wishes well, compassion bends near when pain is present. It sees the trembling behind anger, the loneliness behind pride, the fear behind cruelty, and the exhaustion behind harsh words. Compassion does not excuse unwholesome actions, but it understands that beings who harm others are often burning inside themselves. It knows that pain, when left untrained, spreads from one heart to another like fire passing through dry grass. When compassion matures, we do not look at suffering with indifference. We do not say, that is not my concern. We also do not drown in another person's pain, as if we have no ground beneath us. Compassion is a steady tenderness. It helps where it can. It listens when listening is needed. It offers care without demanding ownership. It reminds us that every being wants to escape suffering, even when they are confused about the way. Then there is appreciative joy, a quality many people forget to cultivate. It is the ability to rejoice in the happiness, success, beauty, and good fortune of others. At first, this may sound simple, but anyone who has watched the mind honestly knows how quickly envy can arise. A friend receives praise, and something tightens. A neighbor prospers, and the heart compares. Someone younger advances, someone we dislike succeeds, and suddenly their joy feels like a threat. Appreciative joy frees us from this unnecessary prison. It teaches the heart to say, your happiness does not take anything away from me. Your blessings are not my loss. May your goodness continue. May your joy grow. In that moment, the heart becomes spacious. Instead of turning another person's happiness into our own suffering, we let their happiness become part of our joy. This is a great liberation. A mind that can rejoice with others is never poor. Equanimity is the steadiness that understands the nature of life. It does not mean coldness. It does not mean we stop caring. Equanimity means the heart remains balanced in the midst of gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, success and failure. It remembers that all beings inherit their own karma. It remembers that we cannot control every result, cannot carry every burden, cannot force every person to awaken before their time. With equanimity, we do what is wholesome, and then we release the demand that life must unfold exactly as we wish. We love, but we do not cling. We help, but we do not imagine ourselves to be the owner of another person's destiny. We act with sincerity, but we understand that causes and conditions are vast. Equanimity gives dignity to the heart. It keeps kindness from becoming attachment, and compassion from becoming despair. Right mindfulness is the clear remembering of the present moment. It is the mind's ability to know what is happening while it is happening. When anger appears, mindfulness knows anger is here. When jealousy appears, mindfulness knows jealousy is here. When fear tightens the chest, mindfulness knows fear is being felt. This simple knowing changes everything. Without mindfulness, we become the anger, we become the jealousy, we become the fear. With mindfulness, we begin to see them as passing states, not as masters we must obey. Mindfulness creates a sacred pause. Someone speaks harshly, and instead of immediately striking back, we feel the heat rising and recognize it. A desire appears, and instead of rushing to feed it, we observe its pressure. A painful memory visits, and instead of building a whole world around it, we breathe and know this too is a condition arising. In that pause, karma can change. In that pause, the old chain can be broken. Wisdom sees causes and consequences. Wisdom understands that nothing appears without conditions. If there is bitterness, there are causes. If there is peace, there are causes. If a life is filled with conflict, we do not merely blame fate. We look at the seeds being planted. If a heart becomes gentle, we do not call it accident. We recognize the training behind it. Wisdom is not merely knowing many teachings. It is seeing deeply enough that we no longer wish to create suffering for ourselves or others. Wisdom looks at a harsh word and sees more than a sound. It sees a seed. It looks at a generous act and sees more than a moment. It sees a path. It looks at hatred and understands the future pain hidden inside it. It looks at forgiveness and understands the freedom beginning there. With wisdom, we stop asking only, "What do I want right now?" and begin asking, "What will this create? Where will this lead? What kind of heart am I becoming?" Meditation gathers the mind. Most of the time, the untrained mind is scattered in 100 directions. It runs to the past, then the future, then to fantasy, fear, memory, judgment, and desire. It is exhausted because it never truly rests. Meditation invites the mind to come home, to sit, to breathe, to know the body, to observe feeling, to see thoughts arise and pass like clouds moving across the sky. In meditation, we learn that we do not have to follow every thought. We do not have to believe every emotion. We do not have to become involved in every story the mind presents. Slowly, the mind becomes more collected. And when the mind is collected, it becomes clearer. When it is clearer, wisdom can see. When wisdom sees, the heart lets go. Meditation is not an escape from life. It is a training that allows us to meet life without being shattered by it. And then there is patience or patient endurance. This quality is quiet, but it is one of the great protectors of the path. Many harmful actions are born from the inability to endure a difficult moment. We cannot endure insult, so we retaliate. We cannot endure discomfort, so we grasp at unhealthy pleasure. We cannot endure waiting, so we force what is not ready. We cannot endure uncertainty, so we create stories and suffer inside them. Patience stands at the doorway, and prevents new harm from entering. It tells the mind, wait, do not act from the fire, do not speak from this wound, let the storm pass before you choose. Patience does not mean weakness. It does not mean we accept injustice without response. It means we refuse to let pain turn us into its servant. It means we are strong enough to remain awake when the old habit demands immediate reaction. In ordinary life, these qualities are not far away. They are practiced in the middle of simple moments. A difficult conversation becomes a field of practice. We listen not only to the words of the other person, but to our own heart. Can we speak truth without cruelty? Can we disagree without contempt? Can we remain present without preparing our next attack? In that moment, loving kindness, mindfulness, patience, and wisdom are no longer ideas. They are alive. A delay becomes practice. The line is long. The traffic does not move. The plan changes. The answer does not come. The untrained mind complains, tightens, and burns. But the practicing heart notices the heat and breathes. It remembers. This is a moment to cultivate patience. This is a moment not to add suffering to inconvenience. Nothing dramatic may happen outwardly, but inwardly a great victory has taken place. Someone else's success becomes practice. Instead of envy, we train in appreciative joy. We feel the old comparison arise, and we do not hate ourselves for it. We simply recognize it and choose another direction. May they be happy. May their goodness continue. May I also grow in my own way. The heart that once felt small begins to widen. Pain itself becomes practice. When sorrow visits, we do not immediately call it punishment. And we do not make it our identity. We ask, what can be understood here? What is this pain teaching me about clinging, expectation, compassion, impermanence? Pain may still hurt, but it no longer has to become a prison. With wisdom, even suffering can become a doorway. To live in this way is not weakness. Goodness is not weakness. Kindness is not weakness. Patience is not weakness. A person who can restrain a harmful word is not weak. A person who can rejoice in another's joy is not weak. A person who can remain steady while praised or blamed is not weak. These qualities require strength, discipline, and courage. The untrained mind prefers blame, it prefers fear. It prefers the familiar road, even when that road leads back to suffering. To choose goodness again and again is a profound act of inner bravery. So when we say that to escape suffering and find joy, one must live with loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, right mindfulness, wisdom, meditation, and patience, we are not speaking of a distant ideal. We are speaking of a way to walk through this very human life. These qualities make the mind wholesome. They turn the heart away from the causes of future sorrow and toward the causes of future peace. And when these qualities become our way of living, not merely thoughts we admire from afar, we begin to understand the four great recognitions that define insight into karma. We begin to see more clearly what comes from the past, what is being planted now, and what kind of future is quietly taking shape within the mind at this very moment. The first recognition is this: all sorrow and suffering in this life can be understood as the painful fruit of unwholesome causes from the past. But we must approach this sentence with great tenderness. If it is spoken without compassion, it can become a knife. If it is understood without wisdom, it can become blame. The teaching of karma was never meant to make the heart cold toward those who suffer. It was never meant to stand beside a wounded person and say, "This is your fault." That is not dharma. That is not kindness. That is the ego disguising itself as spiritual knowledge. To understand that suffering has roots is not to accuse the sufferer. It is to look deeply into the nature of life and see that nothing appears without conditions. A flower does not bloom without soil, water, warmth, and time. A storm does not gather without winds, pressure, and clouds. In the same way, pain does not arise out of emptiness. It comes through a web of causes, some close, some distant, some visible, some hidden far beyond ordinary memory. When we say that the sorrow of this life is the result of past unwholesome causes, we are not saying that every tear can be easily explained. We are not saying that the person who suffers is somehow less worthy, less pure, or less loved by life. We are simply saying that life unfolds according to causes and results. The universe is not random in the deepest sense. The mind, the body, relationships, circumstances, even the subtle atmosphere around a person's life, all move within the stream of conditions. Some causes are very near. They may have been planted this morning, yesterday, or 10 years ago. A word spoken in anger may return as distance between two hearts. A careless action may return as danger. A habit of greed may return as restlessness, fear, and the inability to be content. A pattern of harsh speech may return as loneliness, because people slowly withdraw from a mouth that wounds them. These things are not mysterious. We can see them clearly if we are willing to look. A person who often gives in to anger may wonder why trust around them keeps breaking. They may feel misunderstood. They may think, why do people avoid me? Why do they not open their hearts? But if they look honestly, they may see that anger has been burning bridges, little by little. Each outburst becomes a small fire. Each cruel sentence leaves a mark. Even when others forgive, something delicate has been shaken. And when trust is broken many times, suffering appears. Not as punishment from outside, but as the natural result of seeds once planted. A person who lives carelessly may experience danger again and again. They may ignore small warnings, rush through life, neglect their body, neglect their duties, neglect the safety of others. Then one day pain arrives, an accident, a loss, a sudden collapse. If we look only at the moment of pain, it may appear unfair, but if we look deeper, we may see a chain. Not always clearly, not always completely, but enough to understand that carelessness has consequences. A person who lives with greed may gather many things, yet sleep with anxiety. They may gain wealth, status, praise, and still feel poor inside. Why? Because greed does not create peace. The more it creates hunger, the more it fears losing, the more it owns, the more it compares, the more it clings, the more it trembles. So suffering arises not because life hates that person, but because greed itself is a restless fire. To hold it is already to be burned by it. A person who uses harsh speech may slowly find themselves alone. At first, people may tolerate them. Then people become careful around them. Then people speak less. Then the heart that once wanted closeness begins to protect itself. And the one who speaks harshly may suffer deeply, wondering why love has become distant. But words are karma. Tone is karma. Intention is karma. A voice can become a shelter, or it can become a weapon. And when it becomes a weapon too often, loneliness is not surprising. Yet even with these examples, we must remain humble. Not all causes can be traced. Not all suffering can be explained by what we see in this one lifetime. There are pains that seem to arrive without any visible reason. A child is born into hardship. A kind person faces betrayal. Someone who has done much good still meets illness, loss, or grief. If we use a shallow understanding of karma, we may become confused, or worse, cruel. We may say they must have done something wrong, but that is not wisdom. That is speculation, and speculation about another person's karma is dangerous ground. The Buddha's teaching points us inward first. It asks us to contemplate our own mind, our own actions, our own intentions. Karma is a mirror for self-reflection, not a stone to throw at others. When we see another person's suffering, the proper response is compassion. We do not need to know all their past causes in order to offer kindness now. We do not need to understand the whole history of their pain in order to sit beside them with a gentle heart. If someone is drowning, we do not stand on the riverbank and give a lecture about how they fell in. We reach out a hand. This is very important. The teaching that suffering has roots should make us more humble, not more judgmental. It should make us more careful, not more cold. It should make us say, how mysterious and deep this life is. How many causes move beneath the surface? How much pain beings carry? May I not add more suffering to this world? When suffering visits us personally, then the teaching becomes a lamp. It helps us not to collapse into hatred. It helps us not to believe that pain is meaningless. It helps us that this moment, however difficult, is part of a stream. Something has ripened. Some old seed has found its season. Some fruit, bitter though it may be, has come to the hand. This does not mean we should be passive. It does not mean we should accept injustice, abuse, or harm without action. To understand karma is not to become weak. It is to act with wisdom. If we are in danger, we step away. If something must be corrected, we correct it. If help is needed, we seek help. But inwardly, we try not to add hatred to pain, because hatred becomes another seed. We try not to turn suffering into cruelty, because cruelty becomes another future. We try not to let the bitter fruit of the past become the poison seed of tomorrow. This is where mindfulness becomes precious. When pain arises, the ordinary mind reacts quickly. It says, "Why me?" Then it may say, "Who can I blame?" Then it may seek revenge, or drown itself in despair, or speak words that deepen the wound in that moment. Old karma is not only being experienced, new karma is being created. The past has brought a painful fruit, but the present still holds a choice. This is the dignity of the human heart. We may not be able to choose what has already ripened, but we can choose how we meet it. If sorrow comes, and we meet it with resentment, resentment becomes a new cause. If loss comes, and we meet it with bitterness, bitterness becomes a new cause. If humiliation comes, and we meet it with the desire to humiliate others, then the wheel continues. The wound becomes a weapon. The victim becomes a source of harm. The old fire passes into new hands. But if sorrow comes and we meet it with mindfulness, something changes. We may still cry. We may still tremble. We may still feel the ache of being human. Mindfulness does not make us stone. It does not erase grief, but it gives grief a clean space to breathe. It allows us to say, "This is suffering. This is painful. This is the ripening of causes. Let me not be reckless now. Let me not create more darkness from this darkness." That one moment of restraint is powerful. Perhaps anger rises, but we do not speak the cruel sentence. Perhaps fear rises, but we do not betray our values. Perhaps pain rises, but we do not strike the innocent. Perhaps despair rises, but we take one breath, then another, and remain with what is true in the eyes of the world. This may not look dramatic. No one may applaud it. No one may even notice. But spiritually, such a moment is profound. It is the place where old karma ends without being renewed. Patience, in this sense, is not weakness. Patience is the strength to let a painful result ripen without planting another painful cause. Moral restraint is not repression. It is protection. It protects our future. It protects others from the overflow of our suffering. It protects the mind from becoming a servant of pain. Think of a person who has been insulted. The insult is painful. It may be the fruit of many conditions: a difficult relationship, past arrogance, unresolved, or causes too subtle to know. In that heated moment, the person wants to strike back. The tongue is ready. The mind has already prepared a sharper insult. But then mindfulness appears. A small space opens. They feel the heat in the chest. They know, "If I speak from this fire, I will create more fire." So they remain silent, or they speak firmly but without cruelty. The old pain has arrived, but it is not passed forward. This is freedom beginning in a very quiet form. Or imagine someone who loses something precious. The grief is real. The heart contracts. The mind says, "I cannot bear this." But instead of turning that pain into envy toward others, instead of becoming hard and cynical, they sit with the loss. They allow tears. They ask for support. They remember impermanence. Slowly, the grief becomes a teacher rather than a poison. The suffering still hurts, but it does not destroy the goodness of the heart. This is the healing response the path invites us to practice. When painful karma ripens, we do not need to hate ourselves. We do not need to build a story that we are bad, cursed, or unworthy. That too is misunderstanding. Karma is not a doctrine of shame. It is a doctrine of responsibility and possibility. If causes have brought suffering, then new causes can bring peace. If the mind has wandered into darkness before, the mind can learn to walk toward light now. Nothing is fixed forever. No person is only their past. No life is limited to what has already ripened. Sometimes the hardest part is accepting that we cannot know everything. The mind wants a complete explanation. It wants to trace every sorrow to a clear origin. But the stream of karma is vast. Some causes come from previous moments, some from previous years, some, according to the Buddha's teaching, from previous lives. The continuity of consciousness carries tendencies, impressions, debts, and blessings beyond what ordinary memory can hold. Just because we do not remember a seed being planted does not mean the seed was never planted. Many roots are underground. Still, the point is not to become obsessed with the invisible past. The point is to become wise in the visible present. We may not know every cause of today's suffering, but we can see how suffering behaves when it enters the mind. We can see whether it makes us more awake or more blind. We can see whether we respond with compassion or with harm. We can see whether we use pain as an excuse to create more pain, or as a reason to deepen our practice. This is why the first recognition must be held with both hands. One hand of wisdom, one hand of compassion. Wisdom sees that suffering has causes. Compassion understands that the one who suffers needs care, not condemnation. Wisdom says, be careful what you plant. Compassion says, when bitter fruit appears, hold the heart gently. Together, they make the teaching whole. If we only have wisdom without compassion, we become dry and severe. If we only have compassion without wisdom, we may comfort the pain but fail to understand how to stop creating it. The path needs both. We look at our suffering and say, this has roots. Then we look at ourselves and say, may I meet it without hatred. Then we look at others and say, may your suffering be eased. May I never use Dharma to wound you. In this way, even painful karma can become part of awakening, not because pain is desirable, and not because suffering should be romanticized, but because every moment of suffering gives us a chance to see clearly. We see impermanence. We see the danger of unwholesome states. We see the tenderness of beings. We see how quickly the mind can create a future. And if we are brave, we begin to live differently. So when sorrow comes, let us not be too quick to curse life. Let us pause. Let us breathe. Let us remember that this too is a fruit. And like all fruits, it will not last forever. Let us receive it without adding fresh poison. Let us protect our speech, protect our actions, protect the secret movements of the heart. Let us bring mindfulness to the wound, patience to the storm, and moral clarity to the moment of reaction. Because the past may explain the pain, but the present shapes the path forward. What has ripened has ripened. What is being planted now still belongs to us. And this recognition, though difficult, is deeply merciful. It tells us that suffering is not meaningless. It tells us that we are not helpless before the future. It tells us that every intention matters, every act matters, every moment of restraint matters. Even in pain, we can stop feeding the cycle. Even in tears, we can plant a seed of peace. But life is not only suffering. Wherever peace, comfort, and joy appear, they too have roots. And so the second recognition arises gently, like sunlight after a long night. All happiness, peace, and ease in this life are also fruits. They do not appear from nowhere. They are not random decorations placed upon our days. They are pleasant results, ripened from wholesome causes that were planted before. Perhaps in a time we can no longer remember. Perhaps in a life hidden behind the veil of birth and death. When the heart understands this, even a small joy becomes sacred. A calm morning is no longer just a calm morning. It is a fruit. The quiet breath before the world becomes noisy. The soft light resting on the wall. The simple blessing of waking without terror in the chest. without enemies at the door, without hunger burning the body like fire. All of this is not ordinary when seen with wisdom. It is the gentle arrival of good karma, the return of seeds once planted in kindness, restraint, patience, generosity, honesty, or love. We often pass by our blessings too quickly. We notice suffering because suffering shouts, but happiness is quiet. Peace does not usually knock loudly on the door. It sits beside us in simple forms: a bowl of warm food, a roof above the head, a friend who listens without judgment, a body that still allows us to walk, eyes that can still read, ears that can still hear words of truth. We may not call these miracles because they have become familiar, but the Dharma invites us to look again. What we call normal may be the very fruit of merit. There are people who would weep with gratitude for what we complain about. There are people who would give everything for one peaceful night of sleep, one honest companion, one chance to study, one moment without fear. If today we can sit quietly and listen to a teaching that turns the mind toward goodness, that too is a precious result. Not everyone meets the Dharma. Not everyone has the conditions to hear a path that points beyond hatred, greed, and delusion. To encounter words that awaken conscience is not a small event. It is a blessing ripened from deep and wholesome roots. Even more precious is this: if our conscience is still alive, we are wealthy in a way the world rarely understands. If we can still feel shame before wrongdoing, still feel tenderness before suffering, still feel regret after hurting someone, still feel the wish to become better, then something beautiful remains within us. That inner sensitivity is not weakness, it is a lamp. It means the mind has not become entirely hard. It means the door to transformation is still open. And if the mind can still change, then we have been given one of the greatest fortunes of all. Some people have wealth but cannot change. Some have status but cannot soften. Some win arguments but lose the ability to love. Some are surrounded by comfort yet remain imprisoned by anger, craving, and pride. So when we find even a small willingness to learn, to pause, to apologize, to forgive, to practice, we should not underestimate it. That willingness is a noble fruit. It is an inheritance from past goodness, arriving now as a chance to continue the journey. But here, the teaching asks us to be careful. Good fortune is not a reason for arrogance. Happiness is not proof that we are superior. Comfort is not evidence that we deserve more than others. If happiness comes from causes, then gratitude is wiser than pride. We are not the owners of joy in the way the ego imagines. We are the receivers of fruit from seeds we may not fully remember. A person who does not understand karma may become proud when life goes well. They may think, I am better, I am cleverer, I am more deserving. My success belongs entirely to me. And from that thought, the heart begins to close. Compassion becomes weaker. Generosity becomes less natural. The suffering of others becomes something distant, almost inconvenient. Pride makes a person careless, because pride forgets causes. Pride sees only the fruit and thinks it created the tree. But a person who understands karma receives happiness differently. When such a person experiences ease, they bow inwardly. They think, this is a blessing. This is a result of wholesome causes. May I not well, may I use it well, may I plant again. Gratitude keeps the heart humble. It protects the mind from intoxication. It reminds us that whatever is pleasant now is still impermanent, still dependent, still fragile. This is why gratitude is not merely a polite feeling. It is a spiritual protection. A grateful person becomes generous because they know they have received. They do not feel that giving is a loss. They feel that giving is a continuation of the law that has already blessed them. When food is enough, they remember those who hunger. When their home is safe, they remember those who wander. When their heart is comforted, they remember those who cry alone. Gratitude opens the hand. Pride tightens it. A grateful person also becomes careful. They do not abuse good conditions. They do not use happiness as an excuse to fall asleep in pleasure. They understand that blessings can decline when wisdom is absent. A peaceful life can become a lazy life if the mind is unguarded. A comfortable life can become a selfish life if compassion is not cultivated. A successful life can become a dangerous life if humility disappears. This is a subtle truth. Sometimes suffering awakens us because it forces us to question, to seek, to pray, to change. But comfort can put us to sleep. When life is smooth, we may forget impermanence. When health is strong, we may forget death. When money is sufficient, we may forget dependence. When relationships are warm, we may forget that separation is woven into existence. And when the heart forgets, it begins to drift. Therefore, the wise do not wait for difficulty before practicing. They use peaceful days as fertile ground. When the sea is calm, that is the time to repair the boat. When the body is healthy, that is the time to cultivate discipline. When the mind is clear, that is the time to meditate. When resources are available, that is the time to give. When relationships are harmonious, that is the time to speak kindly, forgive quickly, and deepen love. When the Dharma is near, that is the time to listen, reflect, and live it, because difficult times will return. No life remains permanently in spring. The weather of karma changes. Conditions gather and disperse. A person who is praised today may be criticized tomorrow. One who is strong today may become weak. One who feels secure today may meet uncertainty. This is not meant to frighten us, but to wake us. If we are enjoying a season of peace, then we have been given time to prepare the heart. Use comfort wisely. Do not let it dissolve into indulgence. Do not let ease become laziness. Do not spend all peaceful hours chasing distraction, feeding desire, strengthening vanity, or comparing your life with others. These habits consume merit without planting new seeds. They are like eating every grain in the storehouse and forgetting to sow for the next season. Instead, let your present happiness become the ground for future happiness. If you have enough, practice generosity. If you are loved, practice loving others well. If you have knowledge, share it with humility. If you have influence, protect rather than exploit. If you have free time, use some of it for silence, reflection, prayer, meditation, service. If your mind is not overwhelmed by crisis, train it now, so that when the storm comes, it will know how to stand. This is the beauty of gratitude. It turns happiness into more happiness, not by clinging to pleasure, but by transforming pleasure into virtue. A grateful heart does not merely enjoy blessings. It multiplies them through wholesome intention. It receives and then gives. It rests and then serves. It smiles and then protects the causes of future peace. Arrogance does the opposite. Arrogance turns blessing into decline. It takes what has ripened from goodness and uses it to feed delusion. It says, "This is mine, I can do whatever I want. I do not need to listen, I do not need to care." And slowly the mind becomes rough, speech becomes sharp, desire becomes uncontrolled, compassion becomes thin. The person may still appear fortunate for a while, just as a tree may still look green after its roots have begun to rot, but unseen causes are already being planted. That is why the teaching of karma is so compassionate. It does not merely explain pain. It also teaches us how to receive joy without becoming lost in it. It tells us that happiness is not something to be ashamed of, nor something to cling to with fear. It is something to understand. It is a fruit to receive with mindfulness, to honor with gratitude, and to continue with goodness. When you taste peace, do not think, "This will last forever." Think, "May I use this moment well." When you are surrounded by people who care for you, do not think, "I am entitled to this." Think, "May I become worthy of this kindness by offering kindness in return." When life gives you space to breathe, do not fill every corner with noise. Leave room for wisdom. Leave room for the heart to listen. There is a quiet kind of happiness that comes when we stop taking blessings for granted. A cup of tea becomes enough. A sincere conversation becomes precious. A day without conflict becomes beautiful. The ability to choose a wholesome action becomes a treasure. The chance to restrain one harsh word becomes meaningful. We begin to see that life is not poor when the mind is awake. Even simple things shine when touched by gratitude. And this recognition also softens the way we see others. If someone is fortunate, we do not need to envy them. Their happiness has causes. If someone is suffering, we do not need to despise them. Their pain also has causes, many of which we cannot see. Understanding karma does not make the heart cold. True understanding makes the heart gentle. It teaches us not to compare arrogantly, not to judge quickly, not to cling to our own condition as if it were permanent. Today we may be the one receiving help. Tomorrow we may be the one offering it. Today we may enjoy peace. Tomorrow we may need patience. Today we may have strength. Tomorrow we may depend on someone's compassion. When we see this, gratitude becomes inseparable from humility. The Buddha's path invites us to live with this noble awareness. Whatever goodness has arrived, let it make us more good. Whatever comfort has come, let it make us compassionate. Whatever peace we enjoy, let it become a reason to deepen mindfulness, not abandon it. The fruits of past wholesome actions are not meant to make us proud. They are meant to remind us that wholesome actions bear fruit. So when happiness visits, welcome it with a wise heart. Do not push it away, and do not become drunk on it. Bow to it inwardly. See it as a messenger from past goodness. Let it encourage you. Let it prove to you that kindness is never wasted, that restraint is never empty, that generosity does not disappear, that compassion leaves traces in the long river of becoming. And then, while the heart is still warm with gratitude, plant again. Plant through a gentle word. Plant through an honest deed. Plant through forgiveness when the ego wants revenge. Plant through patience when irritation rises. Plant through meditation when the mind wants to scatter. Plant through compassion when the world teaches indifference. Plant through wisdom when desire promises quick pleasure but hides long sorrow. This is how a practitioner receives present happiness without losing the path they know. This ease is a result, not a possession. This peace is a blessing, not a guarantee. This life, with all its favorable conditions, is a field, and every thought, every feeling, every intention moving through the mind is already touching the soil. From there, the teaching turns naturally toward the present moment, because what we think and feel now is not small. It is not hidden from the law of life. It is already building the road ahead. From that quiet truth, we come to the third recognition. All wholesome states of mind in this life are causes of happiness for the future. This recognition may sound simple, but if we truly receive it, it changes the way we live. It changes the way we speak to our parents, the way we answer a child, the way we look at someone who has offended us. It changes the way we sit alone with our thoughts, when nobody is there to praise us, nobody is there to correct us, nobody is there to know what is happening inside. Because karma does not wait only for the grand gestures of life. Karma is being shaped in the small movements of the heart. A wholesome mind is not something far away, reserved only for saints, monks, or people who live in silence on a mountain. A wholesome mind can arise right here, in the middle of an ordinary day. It is the mind that chooses kindness when harshness would be easier. It is the mind that chooses honesty when a lie could protect the ego. It is the mind that chooses restraint when desire pulls strongly. It is the mind that chooses forgiveness when resentment feels justified. It is the mind that remembers to breathe, to pause, to see clearly, before the tongue becomes a weapon. A wholesome mind is the mind of generosity, not only with money or possessions, but with time, attention, patience, and warmth. It is the mind of reverence, knowing how to bow inwardly before what is noble, before those who have guided us, before the fragile life of another being. It is the mind of modesty, not always needing to be the center, not always needing to win, not always needing to prove that I am right. It is the mind of clear understanding, seeing that every intention has weight, every choice has direction, every inner movement is already carrying us somewhere. These wholesome states are not merely passing emotions. They are seeds, and a seed may look small, almost nothing in the palm of the hand. But a farmer does not laugh at a seed. A farmer does not say, "This is too tiny to matter." The farmer knows what time can do. The farmer knows that within a small seed there can be a field, a harvest, shade, fruit, fragrance, nourishment, and life continuing into another season. The farmer has faith not because the seed is large, but because of growth is trustworthy. In the same way, a practitioner should never underestimate one wholesome thought. One moment of compassion may seem small. One moment of restraint may seem invisible. One sincere apology may seem awkward. One act of generosity may seem unnoticed. One breath of mindfulness before anger takes over may seem too quiet to change anything. But in the language of karma, these are not nothing. They are seeds placed into the deep soil of becoming. They are causes. They are beginnings. Sometimes we believe that only dramatic actions change the course of our life. We imagine that spiritual practice must be a great sacrifice, a heroic decision, a powerful vow made before the world. And yes, there are times when life asks us to be brave in visible ways. But much of the spiritual path is not built in front of an audience. It is built in the kitchen, in traffic, in a conversation, in silence. In the moment we decide not to wound another person just because we ourselves are wounded. It is built when we are tired and still speak gently. It is built when we are misunderstood and still refuse to poison the heart. It is built when jealousy rises, but we bless another person's happiness instead of secretly wishing for their fall. It is built when greed appears, and we remember enough. It is built when pride wants to stand tall, and we allow humility to soften us. It is built when the old habit says, "React now." But mindfulness whispers, "Wait, see first." That whisper is a wholesome seed, and the more we plant it, the more our future is bent toward peace. This is not superstition. This is the intimate law of the mind. A mind that practices kindness becomes more capable of kindness. A mind that practices anger becomes more easily captured by anger. A mind that practices generosity becomes less imprisoned by fear. A mind that practices forgiveness becomes less heavy with the past. Every repeated state becomes a tendency. Every tendency becomes character. Character becomes destiny. And destiny, in the Buddhist understanding, does not fall from the sky by accident. It grows from causes. So when we say, all wholesome states of mind in this life are causes of happiness for the future, we are not speaking only about some distant future life beyond this one. We are also speaking about the next hour, the next conversation, the next morning, the next season of the heart. The future begins very near. It begins with the next breath. If today, in a moment of anger, we choose not to insult, we have already protected tomorrow from regret. If today, when someone speaks, we choose to listen with care, we have already planted trust. If today, when fear arises, we sit quietly for 5 minutes and return to the breath, we have already taught the mind a new path home. If today, when we see someone in need, we give what we can even if it is small, we have already opened the fist of the heart. If today, when memory brings back an old hurt, we begin to forgive even a little, we have already loosened one chain. The world may not notice. No one may clap. No one may say, "You have done something sacred." But karma notices, because karma is not a person watching from outside. Karma is the lawful unfolding of intention itself. The mind is shaped by what it repeatedly welcomes. The future is shaped by what the mind repeatedly becomes. There are people who wait for happiness as if it will arrive from somewhere else. They wait for the perfect partner, the perfect job, the perfect place, the perfect condition. They think, when life becomes easier, then I will become kinder. When people treat me better, then I will be peaceful. When I have more, then I will be generous. When I am no longer hurt, then I will forgive. but the teaching points us back to the present mind. It says, do not wait to plant until the weather is perfect. If you wait for a life without difficulty, you may never plant at all. Plant while the wind is blowing. Plant while your hands are trembling. Plant while your heart is still learning. Plant even when the soil looks poor. Plant because the act of planting is already the beginning of transformation. A wholesome mind does not mean a mind that never suffers. It does not mean a mind that is always smiling, always calm, always untouched by sorrow. A wholesome mind can still feel pain, but it does not turn pain into cruelty. It can feel disappointment, but it does not turn disappointment into hatred. It can feel fear, but it does not let fear destroy wisdom. It can feel grief, but it does not forget compassion. This is the beauty of practice. We do not need to be perfect before we begin. We begin, and through beginning, again and again the mind is purified. Imagine someone speaks to you sharply. In that instant, many roads open. One road leads to anger, answering anger. One road leads to silence filled with bitterness. One road leads to wounded pride and the desire to punish. But there is another road, narrow at first, almost hidden. It is the road of mindfulness. You breathe. You feel the heat in the body. You see the wish to strike back. You do not obey it immediately. You remember, this moment is a seed. What do I want to plant? That one question can save a life from many sorrows. Not only your life, but the lives connected to yours, because karma is personal. Yet our actions touch others. A wholesome mind becomes a refuge, not only for the one who carries it, but for those who come near. A patient person calms a room. A truthful person becomes a place of safety. A generous person softens the fear of others. A forgiving person interrupts the long inheritance of revenge. A mindful person does not pass their inner storm blindly into the world. This is why daily cultivation matters. The spiritual life is not only what we believe, it is what we practice when the belief is tested. It is not only what we admire in the Buddha's teaching, it is what we do with our own irritation, our own craving, our own jealousy, our own sorrow. To say, I believe in karma, is not yet enough. The deeper question is, when the mind is burning, do I still remember that this fire has consequences? When the heart is soft, do I use that softness to create good? When the opportunity for virtue appears, do I recognize it before it passes? Because opportunities for wholesome karma are everywhere. They appear when an elderly person needs help crossing a street. They appear when a friend needs to be heard without judgment. They appear when we return what is not ours, even though no one would know. They appear when we refuse to gossip, even though the story would make us feel important. They appear when we put down the phone and offer our full presence. They appear when we admit, I was wrong. They appear when we rejoice in another person's success. They appear when we choose simple contentment instead of endless comparison. And they appear most powerfully in the mind before action takes form. Before the hand gives, the heart opens. Before the mouth apologizes, humility arises. Before the body sits in meditation, wisdom has already chosen to return. Before forgiveness becomes words, the mind has already loosened its grip. This is why the teaching emphasizes mental states so deeply. The mind is the forerunner. The mind is the field. The mind is the place where karma first begins to take shape. If the mind is filled with loving kindness, even a simple sentence can heal. If the mind is filled with greed, even a gift can become a performance. If the mind is filled with wisdom, silence can be compassionate. If the mind is filled with hatred, even truth can be used as a blade. So the practitioner does not look only at the outer form. The practitioner turns inward and asks, what is the intention here? What quality of mind am I feeding? What future am I preparing? This kind of awareness makes life sacred without making it complicated. We do not need to escape ordinary life in order to practice. We need to enter ordinary life with a different understanding. Washing dishes can be patience. Working honestly can be virtue. Caring for a sick family member can be compassion. Earning a living without harming others can be right conduct. Resting with mindfulness can be respect for the body. Speaking gently to ourselves after failure can be an act of non-hatred. Every day gives us countless chances to plant, but we must be consistent, not dramatic, consistent, not perfect, sincere, not loud, steady. A tree does not grow because it was watered once with great emotion. It grows because it is nourished again and again. In the same way, a wholesome life is not created by one beautiful mood, one generous act, one peaceful meditation session. It is created by returning, again and again, to what is skillful. Return to kindness, return to honesty, return to mindfulness, return to restraint, return to compassion, return to wisdom, return when you forget, return when you fall, return when you feel ashamed that you have fallen, return when progress feels slow, return when no one understands your effort. Return because every return is itself a wholesome seed, and over time, something changes. At first, kindness may feel like effort. Later, it becomes more natural. At first, restraint may feel like losing. Later, it feels like freedom. At first, meditation may feel like sitting with chaos. Later, it becomes a home you can visit within yourself. At first, forgiveness may feel impossible. Later, you begin to see that holding hatred is like drinking poison and waiting for another person to suffer. This is future joy beginning to ripen, not always as wealth, not always as comfort, not always as praise or success. Future joy may ripen as a peaceful conscience. It may ripen as good friends drawn to your sincerity. It may ripen as courage during illness, clarity during confusion, gentleness in old age. It may ripen as being born into conditions where the Dharma can be heard again. It may ripen as a mind that turns naturally toward liberation, because it has been trained, seed by seed, life after life, to love what is wholesome. That is a great treasure, greater than what any enemy can take, greater than what any loved one can give. Even a mother who loves her child with all her heart cannot protect that child the way the child's own wholesome karma can protect them. She can feed, guide, comfort, and pray. She can give her body, her sleep, her years. But she cannot enter the deepest current of that child's mind and plant the seeds for them. Each being must cultivate their own field. Each being must inherit their own intentions. This is not a cold teaching. It is a compassionate one, because it tells us that we are not helpless. We may not control everything that happens to us. We may not be able to erase old karma immediately. We may not be able to choose every condition of the body, family, society, or world into which we were born, but we can choose how to meet this moment. We can choose whether the mind leans toward harm or healing. We can choose whether suffering becomes more suffering, or suffering becomes wisdom. And if we choose wisely, even in small ways, we are already preparing happiness. So do not look down on one breath taken in mindfulness. Do not look down on one kind word spoken in a difficult hour. Do not look down on one temptation resisted, one resentment softened, one coin given, one meal shared, one truth told, one apology offered, one prayer of loving kindness sent silently to someone who will never know. The universe of karma is not careless. Nothing wholesome is wasted. A small lamp matters in a dark room. A small seed matters in a vast field. A small turn of the heart matters in the long journey of birth and death. The practitioner who understands this becomes careful but not anxious. They become diligent but not harsh. They do not practice goodness to decorate the self. They practice because they understand cause and effect. They understand that joy is not begged from heaven, stolen from others, or purchased by desire. True joy is cultivated. It is grown. It is made possible by the purification of intention. So today, let the mind become a garden. Let kindness be planted. Let mindfulness be watered. Let generosity receive sunlight. Let patience take root. Let wisdom clear the weeds. Let forgiveness loosen the stones in the soil. And even if the harvest is not visible yet, trust the law of growth. Trust the quiet power of wholesome causes, because the happiness of the future is not waiting somewhere far away, unrelated to who we are now. It is being prepared in this very breath, in this very thought, in this very choice. Each wholesome state of mind is a companion walking ahead of us, arranging shade on the road we have not yet reached. Yet the same law works in the opposite direction. And this is why the practitioner must guard the mind with care. The fourth recognition is this: all unwholesome states of mind in this life are causes of suffering for the future. This is a simple sentence, but if we let it enter deeply, it can change the way we live. Because many people are careful with their actions, but careless with their thoughts. They say, "I did not say it out loud. I did not do anything. It was only in my mind." But in the teaching of karma, the mind is not a harmless, empty room. The mind is the birthplace. The mind is the field where seeds are planted before they appear as speech, before they harden into action, before they become the road we must walk. An unwholesome mind does not always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it comes quietly, almost politely. A little resentment when someone else is praised, a little envy when another person succeeds, a little greed when enough is no longer enough, a small pleasure when someone who hurt us begins to suffer, a silent contempt toward those we think are beneath us, a hidden pride that whispers, "I am better. I know more, I deserve more." A lazy heaviness that refuses to do what is good, even when the heart knows it should. A desire to control, to manipulate, to bend the truth so that others move according to our wishes. These things may not look dramatic from the outside. No one may notice them, no one may accuse us. But karma does not wait for witnesses. Karma begins where intention begins. This is why the practitioner learns to look inward. Not with fear, not with hatred toward oneself, but with honesty. We look into the mind the way a careful person looks into a cup before drinking. Is there poison here? Is there bitterness here? Is there something that will harm me if I swallow it again and again? The Buddha's path does not ask us to panic. When we see darkness in the mind, it asks us to recognize it. Because what is recognized can be transformed. What is denied continues to grow in secret. Resentment is one of the most common unwholesome states. It often feels justified. We remember what someone said, what they did, how they failed us, how they embarrassed us, how they left us alone when we needed kindness. The mind repeats the scene many times, and each repetition makes the wound feel fresh. At first, resentment looks like protection. It says, "I am only remembering, so I will not be hurt again." But slowly it becomes a chain. We carry the person inside us, we let their shadow sit in our heart. And even when they are far away, even when they have forgotten, we continue to suffer by feeding the fire. Envy is another quiet suffering. It does not simply see another person's happiness. It feels reduced by it. Someone else receives love and says, "Why not me?" Someone else becomes successful, and envy says, "They do not deserve it." Someone else shines, and envy feels like darkness has been placed over our own life. But the happiness of another person does not steal our happiness. Their merit does not erase our path. Envy becomes painful because it fights reality. It turns the heart into a measuring scale, always comparing, always losing peace. Greed is similar. It does not know the word enough. Shelter, affection, respect, and opportunity. Greed still feels poor. It says, "A little more, then I will rest." But after a little more, it wants a little more again. Greed makes the future into a mirage. We keep walking towards satisfaction, but the horizon keeps moving. And in that restless movement, we may begin to harm others. We may take more than our share. We may speak falsely. We may abandon gratitude. We may forget that a peaceful heart is wealth and a craving heart is poverty, even when surrounded by abundance. Cruelty may appear in obvious forms, but it also appears in subtle ways. It appears when we enjoy another person's humiliation. It appears when we use sharp words because we know exactly where they will hurt. It appears when we refuse compassion because we think someone deserves to suffer. It appears when the heart becomes cold and says, "That is not my problem." Cruelty is dangerous because it separates us from the living truth that all beings tremble before pain, all beings seek safety, all beings wish to be happy. When cruelty is repeated, the heart becomes hard, and a hard heart creates a hard path. Manipulation is also an unwholesome state because it does not respect the freedom of others. It may smile, it may speak sweetly, it may even pretend to be love, but underneath, it is trying to use people as tools. It hides the truth in order to gain an advantage. It gives kindness only to receive obedience. It creates confusion so that others depend on us. A manipulative mind may feel clever for a while, but it plants loneliness. Because where there is manipulation, trust cannot breathe, and where trust dies, relationships become haunted by fear. Contempt and pride often walk together. Contempt looks down on others. Pride builds a throne for the self. Pride says, "I am not like them." Contempt says, "They are not worthy of my respect." These states may give a temporary feeling of superiority, but beneath them is great blindness. For who among us has never made a mistake? Who among us is free from weakness? Who among us can stand above sickness, aging, loss, and death? Pride forgets impermanence. Contempt forgets compassion. Together, they make the heart narrow, and a narrow heart cannot receive wisdom. Even laziness, when it becomes negligence toward the good, has karmic weight. This does not mean the body should never rest. Rest is necessary, gentleness is necessary, but there is a kind of laziness that knows what is wholesome and delays it endlessly. It says, "I will meditate later, I will apologize later, I will change later, I will practice patience later, I will stop harming myself later," and later becomes a lifetime. The opportunity to plant good causes slips away, not because we openly rejected goodness, but because we kept postponing it. Among the most painful, unwholesome states is delight in another person's pain. Sometimes we hide it even from ourselves. Someone who hurt us fails, and a small satisfaction arises. Someone we envy loses something, and the mind secretly smiles. Someone we dislike is criticized, and we feel fed. This is a very dangerous food. It may taste sweet for a moment, but it poisons the heart. To rejoice in suffering is to train the mind away from compassion. And a mind trained away from compassion becomes a lonely place to live. These mental states may seem private, but they do not remain private. A repeated thought becomes a tendency. A tendency becomes a way of seeing. A way of seeing becomes speech. Speech becomes action. Action becomes habit. Habit becomes a momentum so strong that it feels like destiny. This is how karma is formed, not only in grand dramatic moments, but in small inner permissions. The first angry thought may come and go, but if we invite it, feed it, decorate it, defend it, and return to it daily, it begins to shape us. We no longer simply have anger. Anger begins to have us. The same is true for envy, greed, pride, and resentment. At first they are visitors, then they become familiar, then they become residents. Then they become the voice we mistake for ourselves. And when a state of mind becomes familiar enough, we act from it without thinking. We wound someone and say, "That is just how I am." We speak harshly and say, "I was only being honest." We neglect goodness and say, "I cannot change." But these are not fixed identities. They are formations. They were built, and what has been built can be dismantled. This is where mindfulness becomes a form of protection. Not protection from life, but protection from creating future suffering with our own hands. When an unwholesome state arises, the first practice is to pause. Just pause. Do not rush to speak. Do not rush to send the message. Do not rush to punish, accuse, explain, or defend. A pause may look small, but it can save a life from a great deal of karma. In the pause, the chain is weakened. In the pause, wisdom has space to enter. Then name the emotion gently. This is anger. This is craving. This is pride. This is the wish to hurt. We do not name it to shame ourselves. We name it so we stop being possessed by it. When the mind says, "I am angry," the anger feels like identity. But when mindfulness says anger is present, there is a little distance. And in that distance, freedom begins. Return to the breath. Feel one inhalation from beginning to end. Feel one exhalation from beginning to end. The breath is humble, but it is faithful. It brings us back to the body, back to the present moment, back from the burning stories of the mind. Sometimes one breath is not enough. Take 10. Walk slowly, wash your face, place your hand on your chest. Let the nervous system remember that not every impulse must become action. Then reflect on consequences. Ask quietly, if I speak from this state, what will I create? If I act from this state, who will be hurt? What seed am I planting? Do I want to meet this seed again? This reflection is not punishment. It is wisdom looking ahead. The foolish mind sees only the taste of the moment. The wise mind sees the harvest. The foolish mind says, "Let me release this anger now." The wise mind asks, after I release it, where will it land? And what will return to me later? Another powerful method is to cultivate the opposite quality. If resentment arises, practice forgiveness, even if it begins as a small willingness, not to keep stabbing the wound. If envy arises, practice rejoicing, even if the words feel difficult at first. May their happiness continue. May I also create the causes for true happiness. If greed arises, practice generosity. Give something, share something, release something. If cruelty arises, contemplate the vulnerability of the other person. Remember that they too fear pain. They too will age. They too will lose what they love. If pride arises, remember the countless conditions that support your life. Parents, teachers, farmers, workers, strangers, earth, rain, sunlight, breath. Nothing we are is ours alone. If harm has already been done, ask for forgiveness where appropriate. Do not let pride protect the wound. A sincere apology is not weakness. It is the courage to stop multiplying suffering. We may say, "I spoke from anger. I see that it hurt you. I am sorry. I will practice more carefully." Whether the other person forgives us immediately or not, the act of honesty purifies the heart. It interrupts the old pattern that wants to hide, deny, and blame. And sometimes the best practice is simply to step away before harm is done. Leave the room. Put down the phone. Do not continue the argument while the mind is burning. There is no shame in creating distance when wisdom is not yet strong. A person who knows there is fire in their hands does not walk into a dry forest. They wait, they cool down, they protect what can still be protected. But we must be patient with ourselves. Purifying the mind is not instant. No one hears the teaching once and becomes free from every unwholesome state forever. Old karma has momentum, old habits have roots. The mind may fall many times into anger, envy, fear, craving, and pride. But the important thing is not that we never fall. The important thing is that we learn to return. Each sincere return to mindfulness weakens the old road. Each moment of restraint plants a new cause. Each apology softens the heart. Each breath taken before speaking changes the future in a quiet way. Do not underestimate these small victories. The moment you choose not to answer cruelty with cruelty, something ancient is being healed. The moment you rejoice in another person's happiness instead of envying it, a new world is being born within you. The moment you stop a harmful sentence at the edge of your lips, you have protected both yourself and another being. The moment you see anger clearly and do not obey it, you are no longer merely a servant of the past. You are becoming a creator of a different future. This is the tenderness and seriousness of karma. No enemy is as harmful as our own unwholesome mind when it is allowed to grow, and no friend is as faithful as the wholesome mind we cultivate with patience. A mother may love her child deeply, but she cannot breathe for the child, cannot think for the child, cannot purify the child's intentions in the same way. No God, no ruler, no heavenly can save us from the seeds we insist on planting. And no enemy, no spirit, no force outside us can destroy us when the causes for destruction are absent within our own karma. So the practitioner becomes careful, not anxious, gentle, not careless, honest, not self-hating. We watch the mind because the mind is where the road begins. We guard intention because intention becomes karma. We cultivate compassion, mindfulness, wisdom, meditation, and patience because these are not decorations of a spiritual life. They are the very tools by which suffering is reduced and freedom is prepared. All pain born from unwholesome mind begins as a seed. Before it becomes a forest, we can notice it. Before it becomes speech, we can soften it. Before it becomes action, we can restrain it. Before it becomes destiny like momentum, we can turn back. And when these four recognitions become stable, we begin to see karma not as a theory, but as the very architecture of our lives. And when this understanding becomes stable, something quiet but powerful changes in the way we live. We no longer move through the world as if everything is random, and we no longer move through the world as if everything is someone else's fault. We begin to see that every person carries a long river of causes within them. Every person arrives in this moment with their own tendencies, wounds, blessings, fears, habits, and choices. We meet one another on the road, sometimes as family, sometimes as friends, sometimes as strangers, sometimes as those who challenge us deeply. We may love one another, support one another, disappoint one another, even hurt one another. But beneath all of these meetings, there remains a truth that cannot be avoided. Each being must inherit the fruit of their own intentions and actions. This does not make life cold. It does not mean we stop caring. In fact, when understood rightly, it makes the heart warmer, softer, and wiser. Because when we know that each person has their own karma, we stop trying to possess their journey. We stop believing that love means control. We stop thinking that compassion means forcing someone to change before they are ready. We begin to help with humility. We offer what is good, what is kind, what is truthful, what is timely. But we also understand that another person must walk with the results of their own mind. We can hold a lamp, but we cannot open their eyes for them. We can point toward a path, but we cannot place our feet inside their steps. We can pray for someone, guide someone, forgive someone, protect someone where we can, but we cannot live their karma on their behalf. This is a difficult truth, especially for a loving heart. A mother may love her child more than her own life, but even that love cannot replace the child's own wholesome karma. A friend may wish to rescue a friend from suffering, but friendship cannot erase the consequences of repeated harmful choices. A teacher may speak with wisdom, patience, and tears, but a student must still receive, contemplate, and practice. This is not cruelty. This is the dignity of moral law. Each being is responsible, not because the universe is harsh, but because every intention matters. Every thought leaves an imprint. Every word sends out a vibration. Every action plants something in the field of becoming. When we see this, relationships become less heavy. We still care, but we stop carrying what does not belong to us. We stop demanding that others become exactly what we want them to be. We stop making our peace depend entirely on their behavior. We may still feel sadness when someone we love acts unwisely. We may still feel pain when someone turns away from goodness. But we learn not to let their unskillfulness create unskillfulness in us. Their anger does not have to become our anger. Their confusion does not have to become our bitterness. Their cruelty does not have to become the reason we abandon our own compassion. This is one of the most mature forms of love, to wish others well without losing our own path, to help without clinging, to forgive without approving harm, to set boundaries without hatred, to speak truth without the poison of contempt, to understand that each person has karma of their own, and therefore each person must be met with both compassion and clarity. When someone harms us, this understanding becomes a refuge. Normally, the mind immediately asks, Why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did they treat me this way? These questions are human. They arise naturally from pain. But if we remain only inside them, we may become trapped in resentment, self-pity, or revenge. The practitioner learns to ask a deeper question. How can I respond without creating more suffering? This question does not deny pain. It does not pretend that what happened was right. It does not silence grief, but it gives pain a direction. It turns suffering into practice. If insult comes, how can I protect my speech? If loss comes, how can I protect my mind? If betrayal comes, how can I protect my heart from becoming cruel? If fear comes, how can I breathe with awareness instead of acting blindly? If life becomes difficult, how can I endure without planting more seeds of anger, greed, or delusion? This is where karma becomes more than belief. It becomes a lamp in the hand during a dark night. A person who does not understand karma suffers twice. First, they suffer from the painful event itself. Then they suffer again by reacting with hatred, blame, and harmful action. But a person who understands karma still feels the first pain, because the body and heart are not stone. Yet they begin to reduce the second pain. They begin to say, "This is unpleasant, but I do not need to add poison to it. This is heavy, but I do not need to make it heavier. This is the result of causes, and now my response will become a new cause in this way." Even a difficult moment becomes sacred ground. Even sorrow becomes a place where wisdom can grow. And when happiness comes, karmic understanding protects us in another way. It keeps us humble. When life is smooth, when health is strong, when people praise us, when opportunities open, when we receive comfort, wealth, love, or success, the untrained mind may become proud. It may think, "I am better than others. I deserve this more than others. I created everything by myself." But the practitioner sees more deeply. Good conditions are not merely personal trophies. They are the flowering of countless causes, seen and unseen. They may come from past generosity, past discipline, past patience, past kindness, past wholesome intention. They may also depend on the kindness of parents, teachers, workers, strangers, society, nature, and many beings whose names we will never know. So instead of boasting, the practitioner bows inwardly. Gratitude arises, responsibility arises. If I have good conditions now, let me not waste them. If I have enough to eat, let me remember those who are hungry. If I have knowledge, let me use it to reduce ignorance. If I have strength, let me protect, not dominate. If I have influence, let me speak carefully. If I have peace today, let me plant more peace for tomorrow. In this way, success becomes not a reason for arrogance, but an opportunity for merit. Happiness becomes not a place to sleep, but a field to cultivate. This is why the teaching that each person has their own karma must never be used to judge others harshly. It is not a weapon. It is not a reason to look at someone in pain and say, "This is your karma," with a cold heart. Such speech can itself become unwholesome karma. The right understanding of karma makes us more compassionate, not less. When we see someone suffering, we remember that we too have suffered. We too have been confused. We too have made mistakes. We too are walking under the weight of causes we do not fully remember. So we help where help is possible. We give food, comfort, medicine, protection, guidance, listening, and love. We relieve suffering in whatever way we can. But we do so with wisdom, knowing that our help is one condition among many, not absolute control over another being's destiny. Compassion without wisdom can become exhaustion. Wisdom without compassion can become dryness. But together, they allow us to live in the world with an open heart and steady feet. We care deeply, but we do not drown. We act kindly, but we do not cling to results. We accept that some seeds take time. Some people change slowly. Some lessons ripen only after many seasons. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to remain patient, honest, and present, while allowing life to teach what our words cannot. To live with the knowledge that everyone has their own karma is also to become very careful with the small things. Because karma is not created only in dramatic moments. It is created in the tone we use when we are tired. It is created in the thoughts we feed when nobody sees. It is created in the choice to listen or interrupt, to forgive or rehearse resentment, to give or withhold, to tell the truth or decorate a lie, to pause or strike back. The future is not waiting far away. It is being woven quietly in these ordinary moments. Every breath is a field. Every intention is a seed. Every day, we are planting. The question is not whether we are creating karma. The question is what kind of karma we are creating. If the mind is filled with greed, hatred, jealousy, and delusion, then even comfortable circumstances become dangerous. But if the mind is trained in kindness, mindfulness, wisdom, concentration, and patience, then even hardship can become a doorway to freedom. So guard the mind as one would guard a precious flame in the wind. Do not let every passing emotion become your master. Anger may arise, but you do not have to become anger. Desire may arise, but you do not have to obey desire. Fear may arise, but you do not have to build a home inside fear. Watch, breathe. This returning is practice. This remembering is practice. This refusal to be dragged by every impulse is practice. Purify speech, because words are seeds that enter the hearts of others and return to shape our own. Before speaking, let's ask, is it true? Is it useful? Is it kind? Is it the right time? Many wounds in this world are born from careless speech. Many wars begin as words. Many families carry pain for decades because of a sentence spoken in anger. But speech can also heal. A sincere apology can soften years of distance. A word of encouragement can save a tired heart. A truthful sentence offered with compassion can become a turning point in someone's life. Soften the heart, because a hard heart suffers, even when life is comfortable. Let compassion become a daily discipline, not only a feeling that appears when conditions are easy. Practice loving kindness toward those you like, toward those you do not understand, and even toward those who have wounded you. This does not mean allowing harm to continue. It means refusing to become the same darkness that hurt you. It means protecting your heart from revenge, because revenge always plants more suffering. Meditate regularly, even if only for a few quiet minutes each day. Sit with the breath. Let the body settle. Let the mind reveal itself. In stillness, we begin to see how quickly thoughts arise and pass, how emotions swell and dissolve, how the self we defend so fiercely is made of changing conditions. Meditation gives us space, and in that space we can choose. Without space, karma pulls us like a current. With awareness, we begin to step out of the current. Endure difficulties patiently, not with weakness, but with strength that does not need to shout. Patience is not passive. Patience is the courage to remain wholesome while life is unpleasant. It is the courage to keep the heart clean when the world is not fair. It is the courage to continue planting good seeds when the fruit has not yet appeared. And wherever life places you, plant wholesome seeds. In the home, plant patience. At work, plant honesty. In conflict, plant restraint. In success, plant generosity. In loneliness, plant self-compassion. In uncertainty, plant mindfulness. In pain, plant wisdom. No place is outside the field of practice. No moment is too small to matter. Each person has their own karma. This is not a sentence of isolation. It is an invitation to responsibility. It is an invitation to love without possession, to help without pride, to suffer without hatred, to succeed without arrogance, and to walk through this life with a heart that understands the weight and beauty of every intention. So live gently, but do not live carelessly. Be kind, but do not be blind. Be patient, but do not postpone the work of awakening. Cultivate compassion, mindfulness, wisdom, meditation, and patience in the very place where you stand. Your future is not only somewhere ahead of you, it is being shaped now, in this breath, in this thought, in this word, in this choice. If you find this useful, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment.